Naruto, advancing through pure effort in Konoha. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Uchiha Qingming. In the room, Qingming slowly woke up, looking around, his eyes full of confusion. Where is this? As soon as this thought came up, a lot of fragmented memories flooded into his mind. Ninja. Konoha Uchiha? Qingming quickly sorted out the memories in his mind, and familiar and unfamiliar words gradually made him understand his current situation. There is no doubt that he has traveled through time. According to the memory in his mind, the original owner of this body has the same name as him, but he is a member of the Konoha Uchiha clan. Uchiha Qingming just turned 10 this year and is in the 4th grade of the ninja school. The reason why he was able to occupy the magpie's nest is also very simple. The other party just got out of school this afternoon and suddenly got the news that his parents had died in battle. So, he was too sad and accidentally died. Then, he became the new owner of this body. However, none of this matters. The important thing is that this world is the famous ninja world, and it is also the ninja world in the Third Ninja World War. It is very appropriate to use a word to describe this period, that is, human life is like grass. Not only the lower-class civilians, but also the upper-class ninjas are living in precarious conditions during this chaotic time. This makes Qingming feel even less secure. Even in the strongest Konohagakure village, it is still the same. What's more, the original owner is still a member of the Uchiha clan, who cheated his father. After the Ninja World War, there is still the disaster of extermination. It can be said that it is raining on a leaking roof. Hey. I thought that sudden death from overtime work was tragic enough, but I have to go through this. Qingming was speechless. What? You mean extraordinary power? Please, Qingming has just felt it. Even though the original owner suffered such a great stimulation, he still did not awaken the Sharingan. This aptitude can no longer be described as poor, it can be called garbage. As for chakra? Well, it is a little. But so what? In the end, the ninja world still fights with blood. Whoever's blood is closer to Kaguya Otsutsuki, the upper limit will be higher. Otherwise, at most, it will be like Mikai, a flash in the pan. Qingming has no idea of saving the world. He was very clear about his own cognition. He might have some ability, but that was just a little. It was almost impossible for him to walk a different path like Orochimaru. If only I had a golden finger. After thinking for a long time, Qingming could not think of any good solution, and finally he could only speak helplessly. However, at the moment when he finished speaking, a light blue translucent panel appeared in his vision. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Physical fitness, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 60, 125, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, none. This is the system panel. Qingming sat up straight, and the negative thoughts in his mind were swept away. He was not a person who gave up easily, but the situation just now was really difficult to solve, which inevitably led to a slack mood. But now, although it is not clear what this panel is for, at least there is some hope, isn't it? He scanned the panel, not to mention the name and age, which are just basic information. Its physique and spirit. The former represents his physical potential, including but not limited to physical recovery, nerve reaction speed, muscle density, bone strength, etc. All physical-related abilities are included. As for the latter, it represents the potential of the spirit. The values of these two aspects of ordinary people are about 3 points. If they exceed 3 points, they have the qualifications to become a ninja. His physique is 5 points and his spirit is 7 points. It seems not bad, but it is not. At this age, a physique of 5 points is indeed good among civilian students, but don't forget that the original owner inherited the excellent bloodline of the Uchiha clan, which is a bit low. As for the spirit, 7 points is indeed not low, but Qingming estimates that it is his arrival that has raised this attribute, otherwise it would probably be only about 5 points. Otherwise, it cannot explain why the other party did not awaken the Sharingan. It is definitely not sense to say that the original owner has no feelings for his parents. Did you see that the other party was so sad that he died after hearing the news of his parents' sacrifice? How could he not have real feelings? But even so, the awakening degree of the previous body's Sharingan was only halfway through. It can only be said that the qualifications of this body are too poor, otherwise there is no other explanation. However, this trouble now falls on Qingming. After thinking for a while, Qingming had no good solution and could only put it aside temporarily. He looked at the skill bar, which was empty. Logically speaking, he should have a few skills after integrating the memories of his previous body, but there was nothing on the panel. Although Uchiha Qingming's qualifications were not very good, he still knew the most basic three-body technique, which made him a little puzzled. If it weren't for the chakra flowing in Qingming's meridians now, he would have thought that those memories were false. Is it because I didn't do it myself? Thinking so in his heart, Qingming stood up, and according to the memory in his mind, while mobilizing the chakra in his body, he formed the 3 seals of Wei Si Yin at a snail's pace, trying to perform the clone technique. However, after the chakra was consumed, nothing happened. Wait, Qingming's eyes focused and he looked at the skill bar on the panel. He saw distortion there, and finally a line of text appeared, Clone Technique, LV0, 1/100. Is it because I didn't try it myself? Looking at the latest skill, Qingming murmured softly, and then looked at the level and number behind it. If he guessed correctly, this should be proficiency. With this thought, Qingming mobilized chakra again, and like before, he formed a seal to perform the clone technique. Without any surprise, he failed again. However, Qingming's face did not show any impatience. There was no other reason. In the skill bar, the number after the clone technique changed from LV0, 1/100, to LV0, 3/100. After this, Qingming could basically conclude that this was the proficiency system. As for why the proficiency increased by 2 points this time, Qingming estimated that it should be related to the memories in his mind. At this time, he was equivalent to taking back the power he once had, so the proficiency growth was unstable. It was also very simple to verify. Qingming took a deep breath to calm his restless mood, then tried his best to recall the memory of his previous incarnation practicing the clone technique, and began to restore it. After a few seconds, a cloud of chakra smoke suddenly appeared, but quickly disappeared. The clone technique failed. However, the proficiency increased by 3 points, clone technique, LV0, 6/100. Obviously, his guess was not wrong. In this way, he could quickly turn everything his previous incarnation had into reality in the shortest time, thereby covering up the abnormality on his body. You know, there is no shortage of mind-reading and soul-enchanting ninjutsu in the ninja world. If he reveals his flaws, Qingming doesn't think he can escape the interrogation of the Anbu. Although the possibility of the Anbu noticing him is very small, it is always better to be cautious. Chapter 2 School. Continue. Qingming collected his thoughts and stopped thinking. He raised his hand to continue familiarizing himself with the clone technique. However, as soon as he formed a seal, he found that the chakra in his body was completely empty, and it was not enough to support him to perform the clone technique again. He opened the panel and took a look. As expected, the chakra was exhausted. Recalling the memories in his mind, Qingming sat cross-legged, sank his mind into his body, and used his mind to extract the physical energy generated by the cells in his body. After that, he mixed it evenly with his spiritual energy. After some transformation, it turned into chakra and merged into the chakra meridians throughout the body. As this process progressed, the chakra in his body gradually became full. 1 hour later, Qingming opened his eyes. Panel. With a thought, Qingming opened the proficiency panel. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 252, 125,126, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV0, 1/100, clone technique, LV0, 6/100, just like the clone technique. After he personally refined chakra once, a skill called chakra refining technique appeared on the panel. The LV0 chakra refining technique can increase his chakra limit by 1 point and restore 50 points of chakra every hour of operation. At the same time, the proficiency will also increase by 1 point. It can be expected that as its level increases, the effect will inevitably rise steadily. Now, his growth rate may not be as fast as some geniuses, but it may not be the case in the future. With this thought, Qingming no longer wastes time, concentrates again, closes his eyes and refines chakra. Time passes by minute. In the blink of an eye, another hour had passed. Qingming opened his eyes and felt the chakra in his body. It was almost at its limit, so he stopped refining it. Of course, he couldn't continue to refine it. After all, chakra is not born out of thin air. The process of refining requires his physical and mental energy. Before, the fusion of the memories of his predecessor had consumed a lot of his mind. After that, he had to think about countermeasures and explore the functions of the panel. His spirit was already exhausted. If he continued, it would not hurt his foundation, but at least it would be twice the result with half the effort. In this case, it would be better to stop for the time being. However, the chakra in a body cannot be wasted. Thinking of this, Qingming forced himself to cheer up, review the memories in his mind, and began to make hand seals again, trying to perform the clone technique. After a few minutes, the chakra was exhausted. Qingming performed the clone technique 5 times in total. Without any surprise, all failed. Think about it, it takes a few years for serious ninja school students to master the 3-body technique. He is an outsider, and he wants to succeed after imitating it a few times. That is undoubtedly a foolish dream. Even with the memory bonus of his predecessor, he couldn't do it. However, judging from the proficiency panel, he is only 4/5 away from success. Now, the only thing that restricts his progress is the amount of chakra. But this is difficult to improve in a short period of time. He is not a genius. He has so much chakra at such a young age. At present, he can only develop step by step. Looking up at the bright moon outside the window, Qingming didn't think about it anymore. After washing up, he returned to the bedroom. Soon, a faint snoring sound came from the room. Outside the window, a figure appeared at some point. The scarlet pupils were particularly bright in the night. It was an Uchiha ninja who had opened the 3 Magatama Sharingan. He stared at Qingming for a while, and then disappeared silently. The next day, early in the morning, Qingming woke up from his sleep, and the first thing he did was to open the panel. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 37, 127, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, level 0, 2/100, clone technique, level 0, 19/100. After confirming that all this was not an illusion, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he focused his attention on chakra. It can be seen that after a night's rest, even if he did not specifically refine chakra, his body has automatically recovered more than 30 points of chakra. However, Qingming did not consume it immediately. He still had to go to school today. If he needed it at that time, wouldn't it be very troublesome? In fact, he also thought about whether to take a few days off to realize the legacy left by his predecessor, but doing so might attract more attention. In this case, it would be better to go to school. By then, even if some flaws were revealed, they could be explained as a sudden change. If you stay at home and someone comes to your door, it will be even harder to fool. After weighing the pros and cons, Qingming decided to continue going to school. As long as he keeps a low profile, there won't be any big problems. With the decision, Qingming didn't think much about it. He quickly packed up, ate something, and after filing his stomach, he immediately rushed to the ninja school. The current Uchiha clan has not been forced to move to the corner of the village. It is still located in the central area, not far from the ninja school. So Qingming came to the school very quickly. According to his memory, he found the class. Someone greeted him on the way, and he just nodded in response. Fortunately, his predecessor was like many ninjas of the Uchiha clan, and he was relatively cold, otherwise he would not be able to disguise himself. Ding-ling-ling. About 10 minutes later, the class bell rang. A ninja in his 20s walked into the classroom. This was their class teacher and teacher, named Sujimu Yiden. From the memory of his predecessor, it can be known that the other party, like most teachers in the school, did not treat different students too differently. Therefore, Qingming did not have to worry about the Uchiha surname causing trouble. Just thinking about this, Qingming found that Shanmu Yiden glanced at him, which made Qingming's heart beat fast. Fortunately, the other party did not look at him for long, and the class started soon. On the podium, Qingming did not listen to what Shanmu Yiden said, but just wondered why the other party looked at him just now. He was sure that the other party was not just glancing at him casually, but was really observing him. Did he find something? Qingming was uneasy. Ding-ling-ling. Suddenly, the bell rang. Qingming was suddenly awakened. It turned out that a class had passed without him noticing. Shanmu Yiden looked at Qingming, who was absent-minded, shook his head, did not say much, shouted "Get out of class, dismissed," and left the classroom. As Qingming's teacher, he naturally knew the news that his parents had died in battle. In other words, he would get the news that every student in the class had a relative sacrificed, which was specially conveyed to them by the Konoha high-level officials. As for the purpose, it was naturally to enable them to guide their students in time to avoid some extreme situations. Originally, he was going to guide Uchiha Qingming today. But last night, the ninjas of the Uchiha clan had already told him in advance that there was no need to guide him, so he did not interfere. The purpose of the Uchiha clan doing this was also very simple, that is, to see if Qingming could awaken the Sharingan. For the Uchiha high-level officials, it was nothing to destroy a clan member with ordinary qualifications. If he could awaken a pair of Sharingans, it would be a big profit. Therefore, they did not let Sujimmu Ito interfere. If it were Aruka in the future, he might still withstand the pressure and guide Qingming, but Sujimmu Ito was different. His sense of responsibility was not that great, so he just went with the flow. Qingming didn't know all this, and he was still feeling guilty about Sujimmu Ito's special attention. However, after thinking for a while, he roughly guessed that Sujimmu Ito should not have any ill will towards him. It is estimated that he only paid more attention to him because he knew the news of the sacrifice of his parents in his previous life. After thinking about this clearly, Qingming finally breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 3 Basic Taijutsu. In the blink of an eye, a morning passed. Generally speaking, the courses of the ninja school are about teaching theoretical knowledge in the morning and practical knowledge in the afternoon. Thanks to the thinking of an adult and the memory of his previous life, Qingming barely kept up with the theoretical class in the morning. As for the practical class in the afternoon, as long as the three-body technique is not tested, it can be passed. According to the memory of his previous life, the three-body technique is tested about once a week, and the rest of the time is spent on teaching fighting knowledge and the use of ninja tools. The last test was 3 days ago, so there is no need to worry about being exposed for the time being. As for the next time, 4 days is enough for him to get started with the clone technique. With it as a foundation, there is no need to worry about the assessment. Time flies and it is afternoon. On the playground, Sujimmu Yiden looked at the more than 30 students below and said solemnly, "Next, I will divide you into groups. After that, you will fight each other. You must not stop before I call for a stop. Even if you lose, you must get up and continue to fight. Do you understand?" Hearing this, the students below immediately became noisy. There was no other reason. In the past, when they fought in groups, and Sujimmu Yiden would watch over them, comment and analyze them at the same time. But now, not only did they have to fight at the same time, but they were not allowed to retreat. This had never happened before. Qingming didn't know what others thought, but he saw urgency in it. Yes, it was urgency. Logically speaking, this kind of battle should be carried out at least in the 5th or even 6th grade. Now they are required to undergo such training, which obviously brought the course forward. Combined with the current situation in the ninja world, it is not difficult to guess that the school is planning to make them graduate early. However, this is also normal. In peacetime, there is nothing wrong with the 6-year system, but in wartime, the front line is in urgent need of manpower, so the time in school will naturally be shortened. If I remember correctly, Konoha's annual graduation examination time is from October 7th to 10th. 3 days later, the school will send the examination results to the top management, and after being approved by the Hokage himself, it will be officially registered on October 15th. And today is September 3rd. In other words, he will be forced to graduate in about a month at the earliest. This made Qingming feel a sense of urgency. Quiet, Shanmu Yiden's voice came from above, immediately suppressing everyone's words. Next, I'll call out the name of Hanada Kundeo. Hearing the voice, a sturdy student walked out. Hire Matsu, another student walked out. Shanmu Yiden looked at the two and said, "You two will form a group?" "Yes, teacher." Hanada Kundeo and Hire Matsu stood together and answered at the same time. "Yes." Shanmu Yiden nodded and continued to call out, "Yamahana, Aoki Ryuko." As he called out one by one, the whole class was quickly divided into more than a dozen groups. Qingming was no exception. He was grouped with a civilian ninja named Murimukiz, who was not bad in qualifications and was as strong as his predecessor. But that was his predecessor, and the current Qingming had no confidence in defeating him. Although the opponent was just a little kid around 10 years old, Qingming couldn't catch up with him in terms of combat experience. After all, the school in his previous life didn't teach him how to fight. Fortunately, the psychological quality of an adult still allowed him to remain calm. Soon, Xiang Mu Yideng's voice came again. Remember, no weapons are allowed in the next battle. Hearing this, Qingming breathed a sigh of relief. Although the kunai used for training was not sharpened, it would not be pleasant to be hit in the vitals. It just so happened that he needed to accumulate experience. It was better to suffer less. He was not a masochist. Yes, Qingming was ready to be beaten. Now I just hope that this beating is not in vain. Thinking this in his heart, Qingming opened the panel and glanced at it. If he guessed correctly, after today, he would have another skill on his panel. Ready, make the seal of opposition, Xiang Mu Yideng's voice came. Qingming and Sen Mu Zhe raised their right hands at the same time and made the seal of opposition. Start. Xiang Mu Yideng fell down, and Sen Mu Zhe rushed out and hit Qingming's face with his right fist. Facing the swift attack, even though Qingming had been mentally prepared, he was still caught off guard. However, whether it was the influence of the memory of his previous life or the muscle memory of his body, he actually reacted at the critical moment and dodged the attack by leaning sideways. Not only that, almost at the moment of dodging, he instinctively attacked and punched Morima's side face. Bang! Morima's raised his right arm and blocked the attack. At the moment when the two passed each other, Morima's used his left foot as the center, exerted force on his waist and abdomen, twisted his body 90 degrees, and swept his right leg towards Qingming's head. Fuck, a little brat, so cruel. Feeling the strong wind blowing by his ears, Qingming complained wildly in his heart. However, he also knew that this was the battle of ninjas, not only cruel to themselves, but also cruel to the enemy, and the process of fighting was dancing on the edge of a knife. Now it is just the adaptation stage. When Xiang Mu Yideng allows them to use weapons, it will be more dangerous. If he wants to survive in this chaotic world, he must adapt to it as soon as possible, otherwise, even if he has a proficiency panel, he will only be a waste in the end. With this thought, Qingming stopped thinking about it and focused all his attention on the memories in his mind and the current battle, absorbing the legacy of his predecessor at the fastest speed. Time passed by minute, and the battle on the playground never stopped. From time to time, someone wailed because of injuries. However, no matter how miserable they cried, Xiang Mu Yideng did not call for a stop. During this period, Qingming was also knocked down many times. Although he had the memory of his predecessor and could deal with Senmuz in a short time, his moves were too rigid and he was soon caught. So, he suffered. I don't know if Senmuz had a grudge against his predecessor, or what, he was so cruel. When school was over, bruises were all over Qingming's body. His rubbing his blue eyes, walking on the street, Qingming did not have much resentment in his heart, but instead wanted to thank the other party. There was no other reason. At this time, he had an extra skill on his panel: basic physical skills. Panel. Qingming opened the panel with a thought. Immediately, a light blue screen appeared in his vision. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 6, 127, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV0, 2/100, clone technique, LV0, 19/100, basic taijutsu, LV0, 35 out of 100. It can be seen that in just one battle, his basic taijutsu has reached LV0, 35 out of 100, directly surpassing the clone technique and becoming the skill with the fastest fusion progress. According to Qingming's estimation, the skill level of his predecessor was only at the beginning of LV1. In other words, as long as such battles are carried out 2 or 3 more times, he will be able to completely integrate everything related to this skill of his predecessor. And such progress was made thanks to Morima's ruthless move, forcing him to deal with it with all his strength. In this case, how could he possibly resent the other party? Chapter 4, Throwing Ninja Tools. That night, in the room, Qingming finished refining chakra again, and his eyes were full of fatigue when he opened them. Despite this, he still forced himself to be energetic and used the chakra he had just recovered to perform the clone technique, one of the 3 body techniques. Unlike before, his movements were obviously much more skilled now, and the time for the seal was able to be kept within 5 seconds. This is the assessment standard of the school. But this does not mean that he has learned this technique. There is no other reason. If it was just the seal, he could easily meet this requirement. But it is useless. The most important thing in performing ninjutsu is not the seal, but the simultaneous mobilization and transformation of chakra in the process. The seal itself is to assist in guiding this change. If the ninja is skilled enough, he can completely simplify the process, thereby reducing the number of seals, or the effect of one-handed seal. Of course, these have little to do with Qingming for the time being. Up to now, he has not even started the clone technique. Don't think about running before you learn to walk. Bang! A cloud of chakra smoke dissipated, and a twisted figure appeared on the side. Looking at its appearance, it is somewhat similar to Qingming. Qingming glanced at the other person expressionlessly, and then he released a clone technique. After closing his eyes and thinking for a while, Qingming once again mobilized chakra and began to form seals. 5 seconds later, another cloud of chakra smoke dispersed, and a phantom resembling Qingming appeared again, still so distorted. In this way, Qingming performed the clone technique 5 times in succession, and only stopped practicing after he had exhausted the chakra in his body. Taking a deep breath, Qingming summoned the panel. Name: Uchiha Qingming. Age: 10 years old. Physical fitness: 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 11, 131, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV0, 8/100, clone technique, LV0, 46/100, basic taijutsu, LV0, 35 out of 100. Tonight, he refined chakra for 4 hours, and the upper limit of chakra in his body increased by 4 points, from the previous 127 to the current 131. During this period, he recovered a total of 200 chakra points. Each time he casts the clone technique, he needs to consume about 20 chakra points. Tonight, he practiced the clone technique 10 times. Thanks to the memories and experience left by his predecessor, he will gain 2 to 3 points of proficiency each time he casts the clone technique. Just like tonight, he gained 27 points of proficiency. So, plus the previous 19 points, it is 46 points, and he is already halfway to the entry level. In addition, his chakra refining technique also received a gift from his predecessor, and the increased proficiency is 2 points more than expected before, a total of 6 points. In this way, as long as he persists for 4 hours a day, he can reach the entry level in about half a month. By then, the effect will inevitably increase, and his embarrassing situation of lacking chakra will also be alleviated. After that, the improvement speed of each skill will also increase accordingly. From this, it is not difficult to think that as time goes by, the speed of his strength improvement will inevitably become faster and faster. As for now, let's take it slowly. Perhaps he could squeeze his body, practice a few more hours every day, and learn the chakra refining technique in advance, so as to speed up his progress. But what's the use? If his guess is true, he will graduate soon. In such a short time, how much can he improve his strength? Jonin? Chunin? It can't be Jonin. Moreover, even if he is a Jonin, how much effect can he play in such a battle that sweeps the entire ninja world? I'm afraid it's difficult to change a local battle. Why should he do such a thankless thing? What's more, he is still an outsider. If he rashly improves his strength, he will only put himself in the spotlight, and he may be caught by others. In this case, it is better to follow the steps. Shaking his head, Qingming no longer thought about it, turned and walked out of the room, returned to the bedroom, lay on the bed, looked at the bright moon outside the window, and soon fell asleep. The next day, afternoon. Still the playground. However, today, Sujimmu Yiden did not let them fight each other, but asked them to practice throwing kunai and shuriken. Just like fighting, these two skills are also the main means of combat for Sharingan. With the addition of the three-body technique, a qualified battlefield cannon fodder is formed. As for other ninjutsu, forget it. Take Uchiha Qingming as an example. His qualifications are indeed ordinary, but that is compared with his classmates who come from ninja clans. If he is placed among civilians, his qualifications are already good. If he hadn't traveled through time, the other party would not have much chakra in his body after graduation, at most enough to perform the three-body technique a few times. If he is like this, you can imagine those civilian students. In this way, learning other ninjutsu is a complete waste of time. Therefore, it is not that the school is unwilling to teach more, but that there is no need. Most of the students with potential have family inheritance, so they don't need to be taught by the school. Students without inheritance but with potential will be assigned to some strong Junin subordinates and taught by them. In this way, the school naturally doesn't need to teach more. Moreover, there is a high probability that this group of people will graduate early, and their strength will definitely be worse than in previous years, so there is no need to teach them. Boom! A kunai flew out and hit the target 5 meters away. Seeing this, Qingming breathed a sigh of relief. If he didn't hit the target again, he really didn't know what to do. Ever since he started practicing, Sujil Muyin has been looking at him frequently. It was the same when he fought with Morimas yesterday. Qingming knew that his performance in the past 2 days was quite different from the past, and he had already thought of a trick to fool people. Unexpectedly, the other party didn't even ask, as if he didn't care about him as a student at all. This made Qingming not know whether he should be happy or sad. Panel. With a thought, Qingming opened the proficiency panel. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 44, 131, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV0, 8/100, clone technique, LV0, 46/100, basic taijutsu, LV0, 35 out of 100, ninja tool throwing, LV0, 1/100, without any surprise. As this kunai hit the target, a new skill appeared on his panel, ninja tool throwing, LV0, 1/100. Following the feel just now, Qingming threw a kunai again. There was a thud, and the kunai barely hit the target. Then, on the panel, the proficiency of ninja tool throwing became LV0, 2/100. Looking at the newly added proficiency, Qingming's eyes lit up. If he guessed correctly, this skill might become his first entry-level skill. As for the reason, it is very simple. Practicing ninja tool throwing does not require chakra consumption. As long as he has not reached the level of his predecessor, he can quickly accumulate proficiency and get started. However, Qingming glanced at the cedar tree in the distance and thought to himself, will the other party see any clues? Thinking of this, Qingming picked up the kunai and shuriken he had thrown, came to the 10-meter target, and began to practice seriously. Even with the experience just now, he still missed the target many times. This undoubtedly slowed down the time for him to accumulate proficiency, but it was worth it. There was no other reason. When his predecessor practiced a 10-meter target, he would miss the target from time to time. Although he missed the target more often now, it was not as conspicuous as the 5-meter target. As long as he was given a little time, he could brush up his proficiency, and then he would not have to worry about being exposed. Chapter 5. Entry and Pension. Swoosh swoosh. With a subtle sound of breaking through the air, 6 shurikens flew out from Qingming's palm, piercing the air and finally landing accurately on the target. Proficiency +3. This is Qingming's latest discovered skill, that is, throwing multiple shurikens or kunai at the same time. If they hit the target, it will increase more proficiency. Thanks to this, in less than 2 hours, his proficiency in ninja tool throwing has reached level 0, 96 out of 100. From now on, just practice twice more, you can completely get started. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Several more shurikens flew out. Proficiency +2. Proficiency +3. Ninja tool throwing, level 0, 96 out of 100, level 1, 1/200. The moment that proficiency was upgraded, Qingming seemed to have broken through a layer of window paper, and had a new understanding of ninja tool throwing. In the past, when his proficiency increased, he also had this feeling, but it was never as obvious as it is now. With a thought, Qingming grabbed the kunai beside him and threw it casually. Even though he didn't put much effort into it, the kunai still hit the target. Is this how it feels to be a beginner? With such a feeling in his heart, Qingming threw all the kunai and shuriken that he used for practice. Just like before, all of them hit the target. He opened the panel casually and took a glance. The joy on Qingming's face disappeared instantly. It was because he threw so many kunai and shuriken in succession, but his ninja tool throwing only increased his proficiency a little. Is it the limit of level 1, or some other reason? Qingming thought in his heart and immediately started the test. About half an hour later, Qingming stopped. After dozens of tests, he had figured out the reason. There are probably 2 reasons why the proficiency increased so slowly. One is that the level of his predecessor was roughly here. In other words, the experience and memory left behind can no longer help him improve. In this way, the growth rate will naturally slow down. The second reason is that his practice just now is too casual. For level 1 ninja tool throwing, he must hit the bullseye, and it must be the bullseye of the 10-meter target, so that his proficiency can be increased. Otherwise, it is a waste of practice. And the kunai and shuriken he threw just now, except for one shuriken that happened to hit the bullseye, the rest were outside the bullseye. Therefore, only a little proficiency was increased. From this, it can be seen that the proficiency panel is not something that can be fooled around. If you want to improve your strength, you must pay the corresponding sweat. The proficiency panel only materializes his efforts. But this is enough. Many people lie down not because they don't want to work hard, but because they can't see hope after working hard, so they choose to give up. As long as every bit of sweat can see the harvest, Qingming believes that most people will persevere. Shaking his head, no longer thinking about it, Qingming once again put all his mind on ninja tool throwing. For him now, hitting the 10-meter target is not a problem, but if you want to hit the bullseye, it is a bit difficult. He must concentrate to succeed, but it is only possible. Time passed by, and kunai flew out of his hands. Most of them missed the target, and only less than 10% of them hit the target. In this way, Qingming's proficiency in ninja tool throwing began to improve little by little. Unconsciously, it was time to go home. Amidst the noise, Qingming opened the panel. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Physical fitness, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 21, 131, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV0, 8/100, clone technique, LV0, 46/100, basic taijutsu, LV0, 35 out of 100, ninja tool throwing, LV1, 29 out of 200. It can be seen that after half an afternoon of practice, his proficiency in ninja tool throwing has increased by another 28 points. To this end, he also consumed more than 20 points of chakra to replenish his physical strength. Otherwise, even an Iron Man would not be able to hold on. Fortunately, everything is worth it. According to today's progress, it will take less than a week for him to reach LV2. By then, in terms of throwing ninja tools alone, his ability will be no less than those students who have been in school for 6 years in previous years. In this way, even if he graduates early, his self-protection ability will be stronger. However, relying on ninja tool throwing alone is not enough. Basic physical skills and 3 body skills must also be kept up. There is no rush for basic physical skills. With the foundation left by the predecessor, you can get started soon, and then continue to work hard. As for the 3 body skills, after dealing with a weekly test in 3 days, you can consider putting substitute skills and transformation skills on the agenda. Although the 3 body skills are slightly weak when facing ninjas with higher levels than himself, they are still useful against ninjas of the same level. Therefore, before graduation, he must learn all of them, even to LV2 or even LV3. Only in this way can he feel a little safe. While thinking, he hurried on the road. Soon, Qingming returned home. After eating a little and filing his stomach, he immediately began to practice. First, he refined chakra for 2 hours, and when the chakra in his body was full, he began to practice the clone technique. After exhausting the chakra, he ran the chakra refining technique for another 2 hours, and after recovering about 100 points of chakra, he continued to practice the clone technique. After 2 cycles, the night was basically dark, and his body was almost at its limit, so he could rest. After waking up, it was a new day. Go to school, practice, and repeat. In this way, a week passed. Qingming just returned home and heard a knock on the door. Dong dong dong. The sudden knock on the door made Qingming very puzzled. Since crossing over, except for classmates and teachers, he has basically had no intersection with other people. How could someone come to him? Although he was confused, Qingming still opened the door. As for the danger, not to mention that this is the heart of Konoha, the name of Uchiha alone is enough to scare a large number of people. Unless there are scoundrels causing trouble, it is absolutely safe to be in the Uchiha clan. And now, the few guys who would cause trouble have either not grown up or are not in the village, so what does Qingming have to worry about? Creak. The door opened. I saw an Uchiha ninja wearing a Konoha-jan uniform standing outside the door. Qingming, the person said. Yes, Qingming nodded in confusion and replied, it's me. Who are you? My name is Uchiha Jito. and I came here today to give you the pension issued by the village." Hearing this, Qingming instantly replaced a memory of his previous life, and a trace of sadness appeared on his face at the right time. Seeing this, Uchiha did not doubt him and continued, "In addition, the clan will give you 10,000 taels of living expenses every month until you become a Sharingan." As he said that, he handed over an envelope. "Thank you." Qingming bowed his head and thanked him, and took the thick envelope from the other party. Chapter 6 Progress. Creak. The door closed again. The sadness on Qingming's face disappeared instantly. Although he had integrated the memories of his previous life, he did not have much affection for the parents he had never met. However, for the sake of the pension, Qingming decided to go to their graves every year to offer a bouquet of flowers. Of course, the premise is that he can survive. Otherwise, nothing he said would be of any use. He opened the envelope and counted it. There was a total of 1.01 million taels in it. Not bad, no one embezzled. Both of his previous life's parents were Chunin. After they died in battle, the pension was 500,000 taels each. So, plus the 10,000 taels of living expenses issued by the clan, that is 1.01 million taels, not a penny more, not a penny less. However, think about it, if even this kind of money is embezzled, what kind of cohesion does the clan have? Moreover, 1 million taels seems to be a lot, but it is not. In Konoha, the reward for a D-level mission is 5,000 to 50,000 taels, the C-level mission is 30,000 to 100,000 taels, the B-level mission is 80,000 to 200,000 taels, the A-level mission can be as high as 150,000 to 1 million taels, and the S-level mission is more than 1 million taels. Chunin can accept C-level and B-level missions, and Jonin can accept B-level and A-level missions. Although there are commissions from the village and profit sharing from companions, it is not difficult to earn 1 million taels. As for the 10,000 taels of living expenses, a bowl of ramen costs 60 taels. If you eat ramen 3 times a day, it will cost 5,400 taels a month. That's just eating. For ninjas, the training is the biggest expense. Therefore, the 10,000 taels of living expenses are only enough for Qingming to not starve to death, but if you want to invest in training, it is undoubtedly a foolish dream. In the past week or so, he has been training under such circumstances. Now it is different. With this million taels, he can buy some secret medicine to assist in training. With this thought, Qingming walked out of the room and went straight to the medicine shop opened by the Nara family. In Konoha, the Nara clan has the highest achievements in medicine, and the things they produce are the representatives of quality. However, after a round of shopping, Qingming found that the most useful thing for him was the Binglian pill. That's right, it was the Binglian pill that could replace a meal with one pill. It can supplement the various nutrients needed by the human body, and is generally the rations of ninjas when they go out on missions. Some special Binglian pills can even temporarily enhance the ninja's chakra. However, Qingming does not need this kind of Binglian pill, he only needs the Binglian pill that can be eaten as a meal. In this way, he can extend the practice time of the chakra refining technique, and then practice the 3-body technique with the extra chakra, and finally form a linkage effect, while increasing the proficiency of multiple skills. Qingming did it as soon as he thought of it. He took out money and bought a large number of Binglian pills at one time under the strange eyes of the clerk. In other words, Binglian pills, if replaced with other supplies, might attract the attention of the village. However, just in case, Qingming did not plan to go out for dinner for a while. In this way, others would think that he practiced hard and ate the Binglian pills as meals. Back home, Qingming opened the panel. A familiar light blue screen of light appeared in the field of vision. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 17, 131,159, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV0, 8/100, LV0, 53 out of 100, clone technique, LV0, 46/100, LV1, 2/200, transformation technique, LV0, 77 out of 100, substitution technique, LV0, 71/100, basic taijutsu, LV0, 35 out of 100, LV1, 16 out of 200, ninja tool throwing, LV1, 29 out of 200, LV2, 10/500. In the past week, he insisted on practicing chakra refining technique for 4 hours every night. Most of the time, he could only gain 6 points of proficiency, but occasionally he would get a little more. Therefore, after 7 days, he gained a total of 45 points of proficiency. This allowed his chakra refining technique to be upgraded from level 0, 8/100, to level 0, 53 out of 100, and the progress was already halfway. During this period, his chakra limit increased by 28 points, from 131 to 159. Although it was still not much, at least there was hope. Qingming believed that as long as he persisted, he would sooner or later become a Chijinla or even a Chitanla. In addition, the 200 points of chakra restored by practicing the chakra refining technique every day were all used by him to practice ninjutsu. In the past 2 days, he concentrated on the clone technique to level 1, successfully entered the door, and could split an illusory figure. After that, just as planned, he failed the weekly test. However, after the clone technique reached level 1, the same problem as the ninja tool throwing appeared. Continuing to practice, only a little proficiency can be obtained each time. Qingming knew that this was the level of his predecessor, and he could only rely on himself from now on. So, he turned around and started to practice the transformation technique and substitution technique. Thanks to the experience and memory left by his predecessor, the speed of practicing these two ninjutsu was no less than that of the clone technique before he got started. Basically, he could gain 2 to 3 points of proficiency every time he practiced. Therefore, in 5 days, he had mastered the proficiency of transformation technique and substitution technique to level 0, 77 out of 100, and level 0, 71 out of 100. According to this progress, it will take less than 2 or 3 days for him to master these two skills. By then, he will have almost exhausted the legacy of his predecessor. Let's look at basic physical skills. In the past week, Sujilmu Yidin organized 3 more battles. Taking this opportunity, his basic physical skills successfully got started, and even rushed to level 1, 16/200, but that was all. After that, he needed to practice steadily. The last one was ninja tool throwing, which was still the fastest, and now it has reached level 2, 10/500. At this stage, he can hit the bullseye with 100% accuracy at fixed targets within 10 meters. This level is no less than Simjinan, who graduated 2 or 3 years ago. However, ninja tool throwing has its limitations after all. Qingming estimated that if he could not awaken the Sharingan, he could only raise his proficiency to level 3 at most. After all, the current practice requires him to shoot at a target 15 meters away and hit the bullseye, otherwise his proficiency will not increase at all. And it takes 500 points of proficiency to upgrade from LV2 to LV3. It can be imagined that once he maxes it out, his level should be no weaker than that of an ordinary mid-jo ninja. Unless he has the assistance of the Sharingan and can play with ninja tools in a fancy way, otherwise. It is basically impossible to kill people with this method except for sneak attacks, sieges, and bullying people who are much weaker than himself. But Sharingan, Qingming glanced at the progress, 51 out of 100, on the panel and remained silent. Over the past week, he had thought about improving the awakening progress of the Sharingan, but he tried several methods and saw no results. The progress was like it was stuck, not moving at all. However, Qingming did not give up. Since the panel could show it, it meant that the progress could be pushed forward, but he just didn't find the right method. Chapter 7 News. Retracting his gaze and closing the panel, Qingming took out a Binglian pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Crack, he bit it with a little force. Immediately, a bitter taste burst out, making Qingming's eyes twitch. No wonder no one likes to eat this thing. This taste. Qingming shook his head, resisting the discomfort, and swallowed the crumbs in his mouth into his stomach. Soon, a warm current appeared from the stomach and quickly spread to the limbs. Qingming did not waste time, and immediately sat cross-legged, concentrated his mind, and began to refine chakra. After more than 2 hours, the chakra was restored to full state. Qingming stopped the chakra refining technique and began to practice the transformation technique and substitution technique. Among them, the transformation technique is easy to say, just need to mobilize chakra step by step and change your own appearance to gain proficiency. But the substitution technique is not good. Practicing this technique requires preparing auxiliary props in advance, such as the wooden board for the substitute. The so-called substitute technique does not involve special conversion, it is more like a sleight of hand. That is, at the moment of attack, quickly use the substitute prepared in advance to replace the body, so that the opponent will misjudge. At this time, the caster can take the opportunity to sneak attack or escape. Therefore, this technique is a great test of the ninja's grasp of timing. If used well, it is a magical skill, and if used poorly, it will even reveal more flaws. However, no matter how skillfully the substitute technique is used, it still has its limits. As long as there is a substitute process, it will inevitably reveal flaws. This flaw may not be a big deal in the battle between the lower ninja and the middle ninja, but at the level of the upper ninja, basically everyone can see such an opportunity. Therefore, in the battle between the upper ninjas, the substitute technique is rarely used to confuse the opponent. However, this is a bit far for Qingming. At this stage, the substitute technique is indeed a rare life-saving skill for him. Therefore, even if it is very troublesome to practice, he is not impatient at all. After more than 10 minutes, the chakra was exhausted, and Qingming swallowed another soldier pill and began to refine chakra. 2 hours later, when his chakra was almost recovered, he would practice the transformation technique and substitution technique. In this way, near the midnight, Qingming finally completed the last round of practice. Compared with the past, he practiced the chakra refining technique for 2 more hours today, and his chakra limit increased by 2 points, and his proficiency increased by 3 points. At the same time, the extra 100 points of chakra recovery also increased his transformation technique and substitution technique by more than 10 points. Don't underestimate this change. As the saying goes, a little bit adds up to a lot. If you increase so much in one day, how much will you have in a month? What about a year? Well, a year is a bit far away. But Qingming can still look forward to a month. If it weren't for the fact that refining chakra and practicing ninjutsu are extremely mentally exhausting, and if you eat too much of the ration pills, you will have indigestion, Qingming really wants to work all night. Qingming stretched his waist, yawned, and after a little washing, he returned to the bedroom. Soon, the familiar snoring sound came out. Time passed by every second. At a certain moment, a figure appeared on the telephone pole outside the window, with a pair of scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan staring at Qingming, as if observing something. After a moment, the figure disappeared, deep in the Uchiha clan territory, the residence of the Great Elder. Dong dong dong, a soft knock on the door sounded. Come in, an old voice came from the room. Uchiha Naruto pushed the door open, looked at the old man behind the table, bowed and said, Great Elder, oh, it's Naruto. The old man looked up at Uchiha Naruto and said, What's the matter? Report to the Great Elder. It's about the observation results of Qingming, Uchiha Naruto replied respectfully. Hearing this, the old man's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, and then he asked slowly, How is it? Has the Sharingan awakened? No. Uchiha Jito shook his head and said, After observing for these days, the chakra in the other party's body has not shown an explosive growth, and his mental state is relatively stable. It can be basically determined that he does not have the qualifications to awaken the Sharingan. Is that so? Hearing Uchiha Jito's answer, even though he had expected it in his heart, the old man was still a little disappointed. Generally speaking, if a clan member has the qualifications to awaken the Sharingan, he can awaken the Sharingan immediately after receiving a stimulus of the same degree as the death of his parents. Even if it does not awaken immediately, there will be some changes in the body and mind, and then with a little stimulation, it can be awakened smoothly. However, after Qingming learned the news of his parents' sacrifice, he did not awaken immediately, and his body did not undergo corresponding changes for a period of time. Therefore, it can be basically determined that he does not have the qualifications to awaken the Sharingan. Grand Elder, do you want to continue observing? Seeing that the old man was hesitant to speak, Uchiha Jito spoke. No need, the old man waved his hand and said, You go down. Yes, Great Elder. After answering, Uchiha Jito left the room. Qingming didn't know that today was his last chance to be valued by the clan. If he could awaken the Sharingan today under the stimulation of the pension, he would not be able to rise to the top, but his subsequent path would definitely be much smoother. Even getting a bodyguard at the Sharingan stage would not be a problem. That's right, this is the Uchiha clan. Although it is difficult to deal with the outside world, it is still quite united internally. Except for a certain traitor. However, Qingming did not awaken the Sharingan, so he was destined not to enjoy the treatment of a genius. However, even if Qingming knew, he would not care. He has never relied on the Uchiha clan. With a proficiency panel, he can grow up sooner or later, 5 days later. School is about to end. Clap, clap, Clap! Shanmu Yiden clapped his hands and shouted loudly, "Students, everyone come here. Teacher, what's the matter? School is about to end." "Yes. Yes." Hearing Shanmu Yiden's call, more than 30 students crowded around him, talking to each other, and the scene was very lively. Qingming stood on the periphery of the crowd, without saying a word. He saw something wrong on Shanmu Yiden's serious face. Sure enough, Shanmu Yiden's next words verified his guess. "Silence!" Shanmu Yiden shouted loudly, and after everyone quieted down, he said, "The village has decided to change your annual assessment in half a month to a graduation assessment. At that time, those who pass the assessment will be awarded the status of Konoha Sharingan and become a real ninja." Although it was expected, when Qingming really heard the news, he still felt a little more urgent. However, unlike his solemnity, in the crowd, many students heard the news and shouted excitedly, "Teacher Sujumu, is what you said true?" "Yes, teacher, can we really become ninjas in advance?" Hearing these slightly naive words, Qingming shook his head and thought to himself, these people are still too well protected. They don't know the dangers of the ninja profession, especially in this period. If possible, Qingming would like to stay in school for the rest of his life. But this is impossible. Now I just hope that they will not be sent to the battlefield immediately after graduation, otherwise. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, The Art of Reflecting the Heart. Panel. After returning home, Qingming opened the panel immediately. A familiar light blue screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 21, 159,189, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV0, 53 out of 100, LV0, 98 out of 100, clone technique, LV1, 2/200, LV1, 20/200, transformation technique, LV0, 77 out of 100, LV1, 19/200, substitution technique, LV0, 71/100, LV1, 18/200, basic taijutsu, LV1, 16/200, LV1, 65/200, ninja tool throwing, LV2, 10/500, LV2, 42/500. It can be seen that in just 5 days, his strength has improved a lot. Among them, the chakra limit increased by 30 points, reaching 189 points. This level of chakra may not be a big deal in front of a genius, but it is already an upper middle level for his peers. After all, he is only 10 years old this year. And for ninjas, the golden growth period is from 12 to 16 years old. Before that, except for some geniuses, there will not be much difference. But Qingming has gradually opened up the gap with his peers, which means that he can also be called a little genius. Of course, if we only look at chakra, it is a bit unworthy of the name. But if we count the LV1 clone technique, transformation technique and substitution technique, as well as the basic physical technique, and the LV2 ninja tool throwing, then it is worthy of the name. Now, even if he is placed in the previous 6-year graduates, he is considered to be an upper middle level. What's more, there is still half a month before the graduation assessment, which is enough for him to improve his strength. By then, even if he goes to the battlefield, it seems a bit unsafe. Qingming glanced at the panel and suddenly found that he seemed to be missing a trick. It just so happened that his proficiency in the chakra refining technique had reached level 0, 98 out of 100, and he was about to get started. After getting started, the effect of restoring chakra would inevitably increase. In this way, he would have the spare energy to learn a higher level ninjutsu. As for where the ninjutsu came from, don't worry about that. There are several ninjutsu scrolls left in the study of his predecessor's parents. When he gets the chakra refining technique to level 1, he will find one to learn. And with the existence of the proficiency panel, he doesn't have to worry about not being able to learn it. As long as it does not conflict with his chakra attributes, he can completely get it to the entry level, or even higher. Do it as soon as you think of it. Qingming closed the panel, took out a soldier's grain pill from the inner room, swallowed it, and then started to run the chakra refining technique. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Soon, 2 hours passed. Suddenly, Qingming opened his eyes, a ray of brilliance passed through his eyes, and all kinds of insights came to his mind. At this moment, Qingming had a new understanding of the chakra refining technique. If the efficiency of the chakra refining technique at level 0 in tapping the body's potential is 1, then level 1 is 2. In other words, in the same amount of time, he can extract more chakra, which is not only related to his chakra recovery speed, but also to his chakra upper limit. With this thought, Qingming closed his eyes again and began to refine chakra according to his new understanding. About half an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes. Panel, with a thought. Qingming summoned the proficiency panel, name, Uchiha Qingming age. 10 years old physical fitness. 5 spirit. 7 chakra. 171, 189,192, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra extraction technique, LV1, 1/200, clone technique, LV1, 20/200, transformation technique, LV1, 19/200, substitution technique, LV1, 18/200, basic taijutsu, LV1, 65 out of 200, ninja tool throwing, LV2, 42 out of 500, it was almost as he expected. In just half an hour, the effect of the LV1 chakra extraction technique was equivalent to the effect of the LV0 chakra extraction technique that had been running for an hour. In other words, it restored 50 points of chakra and increased the upper limit of chakra by 1 point. The only pity was that after the chakra extraction technique was promoted to LV1, it still took an hour to increase the proficiency by 1 point. Even this time, there will be no extra proficiency gain. After all, the previous incarnation's chakra refining technique is still at level 0, otherwise the extra proficiency provided before would not be so little. However, Qingming is already satisfied. At least after today, the chakra he can use every day will be twice as much as before. Of course, these energies will not be born for no reason, and I am afraid that he will have to increase the amount of Binglian pills in the future. But these are all minor problems. Anyway, he bought a lot of Binglian pills before, and in order to survive on the battlefield in the future, he can only temporarily wrong his stomach. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming got up and left the room, and went straight to the study of his previous incarnation's parents. In the past period of time, he was either in school or practicing at home, and he had no extra time to sort out the relics of his previous incarnation's parents. He only roughly scanned the study and knew that there were a few ninjutsu scrolls, but he didn't look at what they were specifically. Today was the first time he carefully read these scrolls. Let me see what's there, muttering quietly, Qingming opened the first scroll, which was the iconic ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan, Fire Style, Great Fireball Technique. Specifically, it is a fireball spit out from the mouth, which has the effects of high-temperature combustion and explosion. The power depends on the amount of chakra injected. It is a very practical ninjutsu. The learning difficulty to C, which is enough to serve as a trump card for Sharingan. However, Qingming did not rush to decide. He opened several other scrolls, 2 of which also recorded ninjutsu, namely Fire Style, Phoenix Fire Technique and Fire Style, Dragon Fire Technique. Although their levels are also C level, the learning difficulty is more difficult than Fire Style, Great Fireball Technique. Especially Fire Style, Phoenix Fire Technique, it needs Fire Style, Great Fireball Technique as a foundation, otherwise it is difficult to learn. In addition, there are 2 scrolls, each of which records an illusion. One of them is called Magical Illusion, Shackle Technique, which is an illusion that requires the cooperation of Sharingan to perform. The specific effect is to construct a spiritual world, transform into iron nails to nail the opponent's body, make him feel pain, and lose his ability to move. The parents of the previous incarnation did not awaken the Sharingan, and left this scroll, obviously with great expectations for the previous incarnation. Unfortunately, the previous incarnation did not awaken the Sharingan either. As for the second scroll, the illusion recorded on it is a bit strange. Qingming has heard of the magical art of shackles, but he has never heard of the art of reflecting the heart. That's right, the illusion recorded on the second scroll is an illusion called the art of reflecting the heart. Qingming unfolded the scroll and read the contents carefully. As he read deeper, his expression changed again and again. From the initial indifference, to the later doubts, and then to urgency and expectation. After reading, his face was full of relief. Now, of course, he is overjoyed. Without him, this art of reflecting the heart is likely to solve the dilemma of his Sharingan awakening progress stagnating. Chapter 9. Half a month later. The so-called heart-reflecting technique is to transmit the inner emotions and thoughts to the other party through the eyes in the form of mental thoughts. In this way, the target's senses are disturbed and their judgment is affected. On the surface, this is a normal visual illusion that cannot be more normal, but after really understanding it, you will find that it is not the case at all. The most obvious one is that its learning difficulty is completely disproportionate to the effect of the illusion. According to the scroll, the learning difficulty of the heart-reflecting technique is as high as A level, but its actual effect is not even comparable to some C-level illusions of the same type. If the parents of the previous life wanted to learn illusions, they would not choose this illusion at all. But they chose it. And they collected it with great care. There is only one reason for this, that is, this technique can help the Uchiha clan awaken the Sharingan. At least that's what the scroll records. The ninja world has never lacked visionaries, and the Uchiha clan is the same. A long time ago, some Uchiha clan members realized the disadvantages of the Sharingan. Not only is it difficult to awaken, but it is also easy to go to extremes. Therefore, they thought about whether they could awaken the Sharingan in a gentler way, making the process more controllable. In this way, not only can the Uchiha clan be strengthened, but also the clan can be more stable. Therefore, the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan came into their sight. As one of the three major eye techniques, the Byakugan is much gentler than the Sharingan. Even if the bloodline is not so pure, it can be gradually awakened after adulthood through hard practice. This is something that the Sharingan does not have. The Uchiha clan's Sharingan requires strong mental stimulation to awaken. Once a person reaches adulthood, his or her three views are basically fixed. Almost all of the experiences have been experienced. Unless there is any major stimulation, it is impossible to awaken the Sharingan after adulthood. Therefore, they thought about whether they could start with a practice method of the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan and develop a similar training method. The art of reflecting the heart was born under such circumstances. The principle is to imitate the changes in chakra and mental power in the brain when the Sharingan activates its hypnotic ability, and reversely stimulate the brain nerves and visual nerves, as well as body cells and mental power, so as to promote the awakening of the Sharingan. This is equivalent to first creating a hotbed suitable for the existence of the Sharingan, and then letting the blood power take effect, so that it can blossom and bear fruit in this hotbed. They succeeded, but also failed. The success is because the heart reflection technique can indeed assist the awakening of the Sharingan, and the failure is because its effect is too poor. According to the records on the scroll, more than one person in the Uchiha clan has practiced this technique, but none of them awakened the Sharingan. If the developer had not vowed that this technique was effective, and the ninjas in the clan who had awakened the Sharingan also confirmed that it could indeed promote the evolution of the Sharingan to a certain extent, I am afraid everyone would think that this is just a white lie. However, its difficult learning conditions and almost untraceable effects still make it a chicken rib. After all, the Uchiha clan members who have awakened the Sharingan don't need to learn it, and the Uchiha clan members who haven't awakened it have tried their best to learn it, but there is no obvious effect. In this case, how can they not be ignored? Now, only some people in the Uchiha clan who are unwilling to be ordinary are still trying to practice this technique, and others have never even heard of it. It's no wonder the Qingming doesn't know it. Speaking of which, the parents of the previous life collected this technique, and they were obviously unwilling to be ordinary. Unfortunately, before they could practice it, they had died on the battlefield. However, Qingming will inherit their will and awaken the Sharingan with this technique, becoming the first person in the history of Uchiha to awaken the Sharingan with the help of this technique. Others may be limited by their qualifications or run out of patience and cannot practice the reflection of the heart technique to a higher level. But Qingming will not. With the existence of the proficiency panel, he can see and touch any bit of progress. Therefore, as long as it is confirmed that it is true and effective, Qingming will not give up. This will be the key to his climb to the top. After taking a long breath and calming down, Qingming picked up the scrolls containing the fire style, great fireball technique and the heart reflection technique and left the study. In the next half-month, he planned to devote half of his energy to the practice of these two ninjutsu and illusion techniques, not to get started, but to become familiar with them. Seeing that the village was still quite lively, the situation on the front line should not have completely collapsed. so it was highly likely that they would not be sent directly to the battlefield. In this way, he would have some buffer time. At that time, he would learn the fire style, great fireball technique as a trump card and see the effect of the heart reflection technique. If possible, it would be best to awaken the Sharingan, so that he would have more self-protection power on the battlefield. With this in mind, Qingming began to practice tonight. In a flash, half a month passed. It was the end of September. At this time, there was only 1 week left before the graduation examination. After understanding the content of the examination, Qingming took a week off directly and prepared to devote all his energy to practice. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult to ask for this kind of leave, but now, as long as the reason is acceptable, Xiangmu Yidin will not stop it. After returning home, Qingming opened the panel. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 5 spirit, 7 chakra, 16, 192,372, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV1, 1/200, LV1, 91/200, clone technique, LV1, 20/200, LV1, 95/200, transformation technique, LV1, 19/200, LV1, 94/200, substitution technique, LV1, 18/200, LV1, 93/200, fire style, great fireball technique, LV0, 30/100, reflection of the heart technique, LV0, 30/100, basic taijutsu, LV1, 65/200, LV1, 185/200, ninja tool throwing, level 2, 42/500, level 2, 120/500. In the past half month, he has been practicing the chakra refining technique for 6 hours every night. Thanks to the powerful effect of level 1, his chakra limit will increase by 12 points every day, which is 180 points in half a month. Therefore, compared with half a month ago, his chakra limit has almost doubled, from 192 to 372. The chakra required to perform the 3-body technique is about 20 points, and 372 points of chakra is enough for him to perform the 3-body technique 18 or 19 times. And the general Jinan is at this level at the end. In other words, except for some combat experience, his strength is no weaker than those senior Jinan. However, as the chakra increases, Qingming also vaguely feels the limit. This limit is not the limit of the chakra refining technique, but the limit of this body. The chakra refining technique only speeds up his efficiency in tapping his potential, and does not directly increase the upper limit of his body. If this body is compared to a barrel, then the chakra extraction technique is the spoon for fetching water. How much water a barrel can hold does not depend on the size of the spoon, but only on the size of the barrel itself. Physical fitness 5. Spirit 7. Obviously, his barrel is not big enough. In other words, his body has a limit. When the chakra grows to a certain level, it will stagnate. At that time, unless the upper limit of the body is increased, it will be useless even if the chakra extraction technique is used to the maximum. Fortunately, as time goes by and he practices the basic physical technique, he can vaguely feel the improvement of his physical fitness. This makes his physical upper limit continue to rise. Chapter 10 Training Sprint. Speaking of basic taijutsu, in the past half month, it seems that in order to let his students survive longer in the future war, Xiangmu Yidin has also deliberately strengthened their training in this area. Thanks to this, his basic taijutsu has also been upgraded from LV1, 65/200, to LV1, 185/200, which is already on the verge of promotion. Qingming plans to upgrade it to the maximum tomorrow. In addition to basic taijutsu, his 3-body techniques have also increased their proficiency by 75 points in the past half month, and the progress of LV1 is about to be halfway. Qingming plans to upgrade their levels to LV2 before the graduation examination. This is also one of the reasons why he asked for leave. If he were in school, his daily training time would be limited, and it would be impossible to upgrade them all within a week. Only by saving time at school can it be possible. In addition, there are fire style, great fireball technique and reflection of the heart technique. These two ninjutsu and illusion techniques are worthy of being 1C level and 1A level, and the difficulty of learning is not comparable to the A-level ninjutsu such as the 3-body techniques. Even with a proficiency panel, He only mastered less than 1/3 of it in half a month. Only the fire style, great fireball technique and the heart reflection technique can adjust the consumed chakra autonomously, otherwise he might not be able to master even 30 points. And until now, the heart reflection technique has not shown the expected effect, and his Sharingan awakening degree is still stuck at 51/100. Qingming estimated that it might take until he gets started before it will have the corresponding effect. Fortunately, Qingming is not in a hurry. After taking stock of the gains of the past half-month, Qingming skillfully took out a soldier's grain pill, stuffed it into his mouth, chewed it and swallowed it, and then began to practice step by step. Soon, a night passed. The next day, early morning, in the Uchiha clan, a training ground somewhere. Because of the war, there are not many people here. Qingming came to an open area, wrapped the bandages and weights prepared in advance around his arms and ankles, and then began to train in basic physical skills. Basic physical skills not only include combat-related knowledge, but also include many trainings to strengthen the body and enhance physical fitness. Therefore, you can also brush up your proficiency without fighting with others, but the speed is slower. Fortunately, there is still plenty of time. Bang bang bang, Qingming punched and kicked the tree, making the tree bang loudly. Soon, a large piece of bark was ripped off, revealing the fiber layer inside. Qingming ignored it and continued to hit it slowly. When he was tired, he would rest for a while, and then change the action to continue training. Because he could see the proficiency, Qingming didn't feel bored at all. Soon, a morning passed. Finally, after gaining another proficiency, the basic physical skills on the panel broke through, from LV1, 199 out of 200, to LV2, 1/500. Then, a burst of enlightenment emerged in his mind, which gave Qingming a deeper understanding of combat. Not only that, the breakthrough of basic physical skills also caused a chain reaction. A warm current emerged from deep in the bone marrow, and quickly flowed through Qingming's body through blood vessels and meridians. Qingming felt as if his body had unloaded a heavy burden, and he felt extremely comfortable. He opened the panel and took a look. As expected, his physical attribute increased a little, from 5 to 6. This was not entirely due to the basic physical skills. It accounted for at most 1/3 of it, and more of it actually relied on the foundation accumulated by Qingming's body during its growth and development. These foundations were triggered by the basic physical skills and burst out at the time of his breakthrough, which made his body undergo a transformation. If 5 points of physical fitness are considered average among people of the same age, then 6 points can be called a genius. The growth of physical fitness is not linear. 6 points of physical fitness is not as simple as 1/5 more than 5 points of physical fitness, but it is almost half higher. This is also the reason why he swallowed the soul of his predecessor, but his spiritual attribute is only 7 points. From this, we can see how difficult it is to have this physical fitness. For the next period of time, he doesn't have to worry about the upper limit of his physical fitness. After adapting for a while, Qingming stopped wasting time, casually took out a Binglian pill, stuffed it into his mouth, and then began to refine chakra. The basic physical technique has been promoted to level 2, achieving his goal. The next step is to practice the 3-body technique and the fire style, great fireball technique, as well as the heart reflection technique. After more than 3 hours, the chakra was restored to full state. Qingming stood up and began to practice the 3-body technique. The level 1 3-body technique can only be said to be barely introductory. Although it can be fully displayed, there are many flaws. Therefore, Qingming wants to practice it to level 2. By then, he can easily perform it even in battle. Soon, the chakra was exhausted, and his proficiency in the 3-body technique increased by more than 10 points. Qingming started to refine chakra again. After the chakra was full, he started to practice the 3-body technique again. Repeat this 3 times. After the proficiency of the 3-body techniques increased by 15 points respectively, he would use the remaining chakra on the fire style, great fireball technique and the heart reflection technique. After practicing these 2 ninjutsu and genjutsu, it was almost midnight. At this time, Qingming would rest and repeat the process the next day. Although this process was boring and tedious, Qingming enjoyed it. Soon, a week passed. That night, Qingming completed the last round of training and opened the panel. A familiar light blue screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 6 spirit, 7 chakra, 5, 372,580, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV1, 91/200, LV1, 195/200, clone technique, LV2, 1/500, transformation technique, LV2, 1/500, substitution technique, LV2, 1/500, fire style, great fireball technique, LV0, 30/100, LV0, 52 out of 100, heart reflection technique, LV0, 30/100, LV0, 61/100, basic taijutsu, LV2, 1/500, ninja tool throwing, LV2, 120/500. Looking at the brand new panel, Qingming broke into a smile on his tired face. With nearly 600 points of chakra, level 2 3-body technique, plus level 2 basic physical technique and ninja tool throwing, Qingming is full of hope for the future. Since crossing over, he has been walking on thin ice, being cautious in everything, fearing that he would reveal his flaws. Now, a month has passed, and he has finally passed the weak period. Next, as long as he awakens the Sharingan before going to the battlefield, his safety will be guaranteed. By then, he can make progress and improve his strength while paddling, and he will be able to safely survive this ninja world war. As for the future, it depends on how things develop. At his current growth rate, he will be able to stand at the top of the ninja world in a few years. By then, even if someone wants to do something to him, he can easily kill them. Therefore, the so-called disaster of extermination is not taken seriously by him. Of course, if someone makes him unhappy, he doesn't mind killing them in advance. After thinking for a moment, Qingming no longer thought about it and turned around and went into the bedroom. Chapter 11 Graduation. The next day, early in the morning, Qingming arrived at the ninja school early. After listening to Sarutobi Hirozen's long and meaningless graduation speech, he walked into the examination room as required. The ninja examination naturally cannot only test the 3-body techniques. Theoretical knowledge such as code decryption and map drawing must also be tested. Therefore, the first few exams are written exams. However, compared with a Chunin exam, the written exam of the ninja graduation exam is very simple, almost all of which are common sense that ninjas must know. Anyone who has been in school for a few years can basically pass it easily. Of course, there are also some private goods. For example, the understanding of the will of fire. Although Qingming has not written an essay for more than 10 years in his past and present lives, it is not a problem to write a flattering essay. Dinglingling soon, a morning passed. There is no exam content arranged in the afternoon, and students can move freely. Qingming will naturally not waste time in school. His chakra refining technique has reached level 1, 195, 200. Seeing that he is about to be promoted, he naturally has to hurry up. After returning home, Qingming started practicing. It took more than 6 hours for Qingming to complete 2 rounds of practice, and finally he reached level 2, 1/500, of the chakra refining technique. Although he had expected it, he was still a little excited when he really felt the effect of the level 2 chakra refining technique. Compared with level 1, the efficiency of the level 2 chakra refining technique in tapping the body's potential has doubled again. Now, every hour of refining can restore 200 points of chakra and gain a 4-point chakra limit. This means that his practice efficiency will be greatly improved. However, it is almost impossible to achieve a doubling effect. As for the reason, it is very simple. His body has a limit. Even if there are enough soldiers' ration pills, it is useless if they cannot absorb them. Not everyone is Uzumaki Naruto, who can eat soldiers' ration pills as candy beans. This is at least a compressed food. Eating too much will cause indigestion. A week ago, Qingming almost felt his limit. Now if he practices with all his strength, he can only increase his efficiency to about 1.5 times the previous one. However, this does not mean that the promotion of chakra refining technique is meaningless. At the very least, it can save him a lot of time. If there are any other ninjutsu that needs to be practiced in the future, he will not have to worry about not having enough time. The second day. Like the first day, there was still no examination of the 3-body techniques. Today's assessment content is basic physical skills and ninja tool throwing. Because they have to come one by one, the speed is slow. It was not until the afternoon that it was Qingming's turn. Uchiha Qingming, 10 rings, full marks. Wow! Suddenly, There was a noise around. Qingming's expression in the field did not change at all, and he still had the same cold attitude as before. There is nothing to be proud of. With his current LV2, 120 out of 500, ninja tool throwing, shooting this kind of 10-meter target is simply too easy. And for basic physical skills, he also got full marks. In other words, as long as you can reach LV1, 100/200, you can basically get full marks, and LV0, 80 out of 100, or above can pass. This shows how loose the assessment standards are this year. No words were spoken overnight. The third day. Compared with the previous 2 days, the students were obviously much more nervous today. After all, although the exams in the previous 2 days were important, they could not achieve the effect of finalizing the final decision. But today is different. If you fail the assessment, you will be eliminated no matter how well you did in the previous 2 days. In the final analysis, ninjas still emphasize strength. If you don't have strength, it's useless to have solid theoretical knowledge. As the saying goes, only the bigger the fist, the more reasonable it is. If your fist is not hard enough, no one will listen to what you say. For ninjas, ninjutsu is their fist. If you can't even learn ninjutsu, what's the point of you? Of course, the above is only for ordinary people. The ninja world has never lacked the existence of breaking common sense. Just like my guy, his ninjutsu talent is rubbish, but his physical talent is the best in the entire ninja world. Such freaks naturally cannot be measured by common sense. However, most people certainly do not have the qualifications to make Konoha break the rules. Therefore, today's test is very important for all students who are interested in the road of ninja. It is for this reason that the students are more nervous than the previous 2 days. Sitting in the classroom, watching the students being called to the podium by Sujimu Yiden one by one to test the 3 body techniques, Qingming felt calm in his heart. The level 2 3 body techniques gave him enough confidence. What's more, Aoki Liuzi, are you ready? Sujimu Yiden said. Yes, teacher, Aoki Liuzi nodded and replied softly. Very good, choose one of the 3 body techniques and perform it, Sujimu Yiden said. That's right, this year's test is not designated by the teacher, but allows students to choose one of the 3 body techniques to demonstrate. Obviously, compared with the former, the latter is undoubtedly simpler and it is easy to find loopholes. For example, if someone only knows the transformation technique, and the clone technique and substitute technique are not perfect, then he can choose to demonstrate the transformation technique to pass the test. In the past, if the teacher happened to specify the clone technique, he would not pass the test. How could Sujimu Qingming not see such a simple loophole? The answer is of course no. He did this because he must have received a signal from above. Combined with the intentional relaxation of the assessment standards yesterday, it is not difficult to guess that Konoha is expanding its reserve forces. However, it is unknown how many of these people can survive the battlefield. Uchiha Qingming, Sujimu Qingming's voice came from the front. Qingming stood up and walked forward slowly. You can start when you are ready. Seeing Qingming standing still, Sujimu Qingming spoke. Hearing this, Qingming nodded, then raised his hands, quickly completed the seal, and performed the clone technique. Then, 2 phantoms appeared on his left and right sides. 3 seconds, not bad, Sujimu Qingming nodded with satisfaction, recorded Uchiha Qingming's results, and then said, okay, you can go down. Yes, teacher. After responding, Qingming returned to his seat. Wow, Qingming-kun is so awesome, a female student shouted in the crowd. Suddenly, the classroom became noisy. However, none of this affected Qingming. After returning to his seat, he began to review the contents of the reflection of the heart technique in his mind. Compared with ninjutsu, illusions are generally more difficult to learn. Moreover, this illusion that imitates the hypnotic ability of the Sharingan is even more complicated. The main targets of other illusions are others, so even if something goes wrong, it's nothing. But the reflection of the heart technique is different. Most of its effects are on oneself. The so-called influence on the target's senses is just an additional ability of this illusion. Otherwise, its actual effect would not be worse than a C-level illusion. If it weren't for the proficiency panel, Qingming would not dare to try this technique easily. How could it be like now, almost getting started? That's right, after 2 days of full practice, his reflection of the heart technique has been upgraded from LV0, 61 out of 100, to LV0, 92 out of 100. If nothing unexpected happens, he will be able to get started tonight. By then, we will know whether it can have a positive effect on the awakening of the Sharingan. Chapter 12 Hope. That night, in the training room, Qingming skillfully completed a series of hand seals, and the chakra in his body surged. The next moment, a ray of brilliance flashed in his eyes. In front of him, in the cage, a rabbit he was watching immediately fell into coma. Proficiency +1. On the panel, the reflection of the heart technique instantly changed from LV0, 99 out of 100, to LV1, 1/200. And with the upgrade of the reflection of the heart technique, a special chakra was born in his brain, along the chakra meridians, and poured into his eyes. This is, suddenly, Qingming thought of Senju Tobirama's explanation of the Uchiha clan's opening of the eyes. That is, the Uchiha clan members are born with great love. When this love is lost, special chakra will surge out of the brain and act on the optic nerve. At this time, their eyes will change, that is, opening the eyes. This process is so similar to what just happened in his mind that Qingming couldn't help but think about it. Panel. With a thought, Qingming opened the proficiency panel. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 6 spirit, 7 chakra, 415, 580,622, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 51/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV2, 9/500, clone technique, LV2, 1/500, transformation technique, LV2, 1/500, substitution technique, LV2, 1/500, fire style, great fireball technique, LV0, 52/100, reflection technique, LV1, 1/200, basic taijutsu, LV2, 1/500, ninja tool throwing, LV2, 120/500, no change. Qingming was stunned when he saw the Sharingan awakening progress still displayed as 51/100. He never thought that the heart reflecting technique would be useless. No, that's not right. Qingming took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled, closed his eyes and pondered for a while, and when he calmed down, he reformed the seal and performed the heart reflecting technique again. Before he got started, he needed a rabbit as a target to ensure the success rate. But now, without an external target, he can perform this technique at will. The only thing that made Qingming uncomfortable was that after he was promoted to level 1, he had to consume at least 200 points of chakra every time he performed the heart reflecting technique. Although the chakra consumed by the 3-body technique before and after getting started also changed, it was far less than the huge amount of the heart reflecting technique. However, think about it, the 3-body technique is only the lowest level ninjutsu, and it only consumes about 20 points of chakra to perform it once. But the heart reflecting technique is as high as A level. Before getting started, each practice would consume at least 100 points of chakra, and now consuming 200 points is reasonable. It's just that he has a lot of chakra now, otherwise he might not be able to hold on. Qingming stopped thinking and began to carefully feel the effect of the heart reflecting technique. Just like before, a special chakra was born in his brain again and flowed into his eyes. After a few breaths, Qingming opened his eyes. On the panel, the awakening progress of the Sharingan still did not change. However, Qingming did not have much emotional change this time. There was no other reason. Based on his feelings just now, he could be sure that his eyes were approaching the Sharingan. In other words, the heart reflecting technique was effective, but the effect was a little weak. Reflected on the panel, the awakening progress of the Sharingan was motionless. Now it depends on how many times I need to perform the heart reflecting technique to increase the awakening progress of the Sharingan by +1. Thinking this in his heart, Qingming once again mobilized chakra and formed a seal to perform the heart reflecting technique. Once, twice, 3 times. A few hours later, when Qingming improved the proficiency of the reflection of the heart technique to level 1, 10/200, the awakening progress of the Sharingan on the panel finally changed to 52/100. This made Qingming breathe a sigh of relief. Although he had expected it in his heart, he was completely relieved when the panel really changed. He calculated secretly that he had consumed about 2,000 chakras before and after, which increased the awakening progress of the Sharingan a little. This price is big and small. It is not easy for a Jonin to gather so much chakra, but a Chunin can definitely afford it. Even if it is not like him to brush 10 points of proficiency at once, it can be done separately. Even if you insist on performing it once a day, it only takes a few months to awaken the Sharingan. Why didn't anyone in the Uchiha clan succeed? If you say that you persist for a few years, maybe no one can do it, but in a few months, there are definitely people who have done it. Qingming will not underestimate the desire of the Uchiha people for the Sharingan. With this belief, it is not a problem to persist for a few months. But even so, no one has used this technique to awaken the Sharingan. This made Qingming feel gloomy. After pondering for a long time, Qingming still couldn't figure out the reason. Since he couldn't figure it out, he didn't think about it. Anyway, the progress on the panel has been moved. Next, he just needs to work hard. It just so happens that he doesn't have to go to school in the next few days. He can take the opportunity to get started with a fire style, great fireball technique and test and confirm the increase in the progress of the Sharingan awakening, so as to better formulate a training plan. However, these are all later. Qingming yawned and looked at the time. It was already 5 o'clock in the morning. In order to confirm the effect of the reflection heart technique, he stayed up until now. It was time to rest. The next day, at noon, after eating something casually, Qingming came to the training ground and began to practice alone. The first thing is to refine chakra. The level 2 chakra refining technique is very effective. In just 3 hours, he recovered 600 points of chakra. With sufficient chakra, he began to practice the fire style, great fireball technique. As a C-level ninjutsu, and an offensive ninjutsu, the minimum chakra consumed for practicing one time is 50 points. At present, his fire style, great fireball technique level is level 0, 52 out of 100. Every time he performs it, as long as he follows the standard process, whether it succeeds or not, he will increase his proficiency by 1 point. In other words, he needs 48 more times to upgrade. 48 times 50 is 2,400 chakra points. This is almost the limit of chakra that Qingming can use every day. Unless his physical fitness increases a little bit, or unless he finds a more easily absorbed and digestible soldier pill, it will be difficult to increase this limit. Boom! A fireball was spit out by Qingming. And then it quickly grew larger, and finally expanded into a huge fireball with a diameter of 1.5 meters. The fireball hit the ground, blasting out a big pit, and the pit was charred black. Even if the flames were extinguished, it still emitted a scorching high temperature. In one afternoon, he had leveled up the fire style, great fireball technique to level 0, 75 out of 100. Although he had not yet entered the entry level, he could succeed once in a while. Just like just now, that was already the entry level. Looking up at the sky, the sun had already set. Qingming did not stay any longer and immediately returned home. After a short rest, he began to practice again. It was not convenient to practice ninjutsu in the house, so Qingming focused on the reflection of the heart technique. Over and over again, until late at night, he fell into deep sleep. The next few days were all like this. Chapter 13 Class Division. 5 days later. Early in the morning. Standing in front of the floor-length mirror, Qingming lifted his long hair, tied the Konoha forward protector on his head, and straightened his clothes. At this moment, he suddenly looked a little more solemn. Graduating from the ninja school means officially embarking on the road of being a ninja. Whether he lives or dies next depends on him. After standing still for a moment, Qingming summoned the proficiency panel. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 6 spirit, 7 chakra, 312, 622,862, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 52/100, 57 out of 100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV2, 9/500, LV2, 69 out of 500, clone technique, LV2, 1/500, transformation technique, LV2, 1/500, substitution technique, LV2, 1/500, fire style, great fireball technique, LV0, 75 out of 100, LV1, 1/200, heart reflection technique, LV1, 10/200, LV1, 65/200, basic taijutsu, LV2, 1/500, ninja tool throwing, LV2, 120/500, passed 5 days apart from the 2 days before, when he spent some chakra to master the fire style, great fireball technique and added a trump card for himself. The rest of his time and energy were spent on practicing the heart reflection technique. With a total of more than 10,000 chakra points, The proficiency of the heart reflection technique immediately soared by 55 points. As a result, the awakening progress of the Sharingan also advanced by 5 points. Basically, every 10 points of proficiency in the heart reflection technique can drive 1 point of Sharingan progress. From this, Qingming understood why no one in the Uchiha clan could use this technique to awaken the Sharingan. Although he could advance the awakening progress of the Sharingan by 1 point every 10 times he practiced the heart reflection technique, it was because he was improving every time he performed the heart reflection technique. For other people, without the assistance of the proficiency panel, it would not be a simple matter to brush up 10 points of proficiency. Especially the further you go, the more difficult it is. And if the proficiency of the heart reflection technique does not meet the requirements, it will not promote the awakening of the Sharingan at all. In other words, the proficiency of the heart reflecting technique must be continuously improved in order to awaken the Sharingan to the maximum extent. Qingming will not relax because he can see the exact progress. But others will probably give up after they can't feel obvious progress. Even if he has the initial awakening progress of the Sharingan above 70 out of 100, the LV0 and LV1 heart reflecting technique will be useless, and he will probably be worried. Will others spend several years or even more than 10 years to practice a very difficult but not very practical illusion to a very deep level? Not to mention whether they have the talent. Even if they do, it is probably difficult to persist without positive feedback. What's more, he has a hunch that the last few awakening progress of the Sharingan should not be so easy to break through. In this way, it will be even more difficult for someone to persist. However, Qingming is not too worried. With a proficiency panel, as long as it is proven that this path is feasible, he will persist consistently. Qingming collected his thoughts and stopped thinking. He left a floor-length mirror, locked the door, and headed straight for the ninja school. In a classroom. Qingming sat in the last row, looking at the graduates in front of him, whether they knew him or not, and secretly guessed which one would be assigned to the same group with him. Tap, tap, tap. About half an hour later, a young teacher walked into the classroom with a list. It was not Tsujimu Ichiden. Qingming had some impression that it was a teacher of another class, and it seemed to be called Gongbeoi. Classmates, be quiet. Gongbeoi stood on the podium, clapped his hands, and said in a gentle voice. Hearing this, the classroom gradually quieted down. Then he heard Gongbeoi introduce himself. My name is Gongbeoi. Some of you know me, and some don't, but it doesn't matter. First of all, congratulations, from today on, you are a real ninja. Hearing this, the classroom, which had just been quiet, became noisy again. Gongbeoi clapped his hands and signaled everyone to be quiet. After everyone stopped talking, he continued, I believe your teacher has already told you that today is the day for class division. The so-called class division means that you will be divided into groups of 3, and then led by an experienced Chunin, to carry out tasks together. After that, you will be the closest partners and the most trustworthy comrades in arms. Hearing this, some people excitedly whispered to each other, some people quarreled to compete for friends, and some people were nervous and fidgeted. In short, they were all very active. Seeing this, Miyabu smiled and did not interrupt them immediately. After several minutes, when it was almost time, he said, Students, if you have anything to say, please wait a moment. Be quiet first, and we will divide into classes. Hearing this, everyone immediately quieted down and stared at Miyabu nervously. Miyabu smiled, picked up the list in his hand, and began to read. Class 11, Nakajima Kanata, Hanako, Filong. Class 12, Kimura Soda, Yamanaka Haru, Kuroda Ichiro. Class 13, Miyabu read out the names one by one, and the students below were either excited or frustrated, but no one spoke out loud. Soon, Qingming heard his own name. Class 17, Uchiha Qingming, Mizutani Shizuko, Ryosuke. Class 18, Mizutani Shizuko, Ryosuke. Hearing these two names, Qingming quickly looked forward. Soon, 2 figures with different expressions came into his sight, a man and a woman. The man looked more lively. Qingming didn't know him, but he had an impression of him in his previous life. He should be a classmate from another class. The woman was a little quiet and was in the same class as him. She had a father who was a Jonin. She was physically weak, but had solid theoretical knowledge. Without awakening the Sharingan, Qingming couldn't see what their potential was, but he thought it wouldn't be too bad. Not to mention his identity as a member of the Uchiha clan, Just based on the final test results, the top management would not group him with someone who has too little potential. In that case, even if the Uchiha clan didn't say anything, the team leader would not do it. Because the potential difference is too big, it would be difficult to lead the team. As for geniuses, come on, Konoha doesn't have geniuses every year. Overall, geniuses are always a minority, and most graduates are lucky to be able to become a chunin in the end. Therefore, Qingming didn't expect to have a genius companion. In fact, for him, a companion is just a companion. The battlefield is so dangerous. Who knows if he can survive in the end? Investing too much emotion, once an accident occurs, it will only add to the trouble. In this case, it is better to handle things in a businesslike manner. In a short time, Qingming has made up his mind. At this time, Guangbei also finished reading the list, and everyone in the classroom has their own companions. Next, you will get to know each other. Later, the team leader will come, and you just follow him, Guangbei finally said. After speaking, he left the classroom. And just as he left the classroom, a noise came out from the classroom, and people ran around looking for their companions. Chapter 14 Furukawa. Hello, my name is Ryosuke, Uchiha Qingming. Looking at Ryosuke who came to the table, Qingming replied concisely. After that, he looked at another person. Shizuko Mizutani felt a little embarrassed by his gaze, shrank her neck, and said in a mosquito-like voice, "My name is Shizuko Mizutani." After the three of them exchanged their names, they sat together after some negotiations by Ryosuke. After that, it was Ryosuke who was talking, and Shizuko Mizutani responded intermittently, while Qingming basically remained silent. From their conversations, Qingming knew that Ryosuke's parents were both chunin, and both were technical talents, one engaged in code decryption work, and the other was a ninja in the barrier class. But Qingming didn't know why these two people would give birth to such a chatterbox like Ryosuke. Could it be that he was holding it back at home? Just when Qingming was secretly complaining, Ryosuke's voice suddenly interrupted him. "Qingming, you haven't told me about your parents yet." "Sacrificed," Qingming replied calmly. Hearing this, Ryosuke was slightly stunned, scratched his head awkwardly, and said, "Sorry, Qingming, I don't know." "It's okay, it's all over," Qingming replied calmly again. Despite this, Ryosuke still closed his mouth embarrassedly. Mizutani Shizuko on the side seemed to want to say something, but she mustered up her courage several times and finally didn't make up her mind to speak. Seeing this, Qingming didn't take the initiative to ask. It was nothing more than some comforting words, which the predecessor might need, but he didn't need. Time passed by minute. About half an hour later, more than a dozen jonin came to the classroom. Well, not all of them were real jonin, most of them were special jonin. The so-called special jonin are some jonin whose strength cannot reach the level of jonin, but have unique talents in some aspects. These people, called jonin, are actually just some ninjas between chunin and jonin. Think about it, for their students, the potential of most people can be seen at a glance, and it is not worth wasting too much energy of jonin. Now is the war time. As the backbone of the village, the jonins are in short supply. Although the training of reserve forces is also important, it is not as important as the situation on the front line. Class 11, stand up, a special jonin said on the podium. Immediately, the three students named Nakajima Sauda, Haneko and Filong stood up. After confirming that there was no problem, the special jonin led the people away. Then the 12th and 13th classes soon. It was the turn of the 17th class where Qingming was. Uchiha Qingming? Mizutani Shizuko? Ryosuke, on the podium, a middle-aged ninja with a scour on his face stared at Qingming and the other two and said, "It's us, teacher." The middle-aged ninja flipped through the files in his hand, nodded, and said, "Okay, follow me." After that, he left the classroom. Qingming and others followed immediately. 10 minutes later, the group arrived at the 10th training ground. This place is remote. Under normal circumstances, it takes half an hour to get here from the center of the village, but now it only takes half the time. Therefore, apart from Qingming, Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko were exhausted. Especially Mizutani Shizuko, she was a girl and her physical fitness was weak. It was not easy for her to run here in such a short time. Despite this, Qingming did not think of helping her, because he was not sure whether this was a test from the previous jonin. According to his observation, Mizutani Shizuko would most likely be able to hold on, so he just let it go. "Okay, that's it, Arriving at the center of the training ground, the middle-aged Junin finally stopped. Seeing this, Qingming and others also stopped one after another. The middle-aged Junin's eyes swept over the three people, focusing on Qingming for a while, and then said, "You can keep up with my pace," which is considered to be a preliminary test. Mizutani Shizuko panted and asked in confusion. "Yes, it's a test," the middle-aged Junin nodded and said, "On the battlefield, no matter what type of ninja you are, if your physical fitness is not up to standard, you are most likely to be sacrificed." Hearing this, Mizutani Shizuko was stunned, and her face gradually turned pale. She really didn't expect that on the first day of becoming a ninja, she would hear such a serious topic about sacrifice. Thinking of sacrifice, Mizutani Shizuko secretly glanced at Qingming and thought to herself, "I wonder how Qingming felt after hearing the news of his parents' sacrifice? I'm afraid he must be very sad." Qingming keenly noticed the other party's little action, but didn't say much. The middle-aged ninja changed the subject and continued, "Okay, you guys take a rest first." Hearing this, Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko sat on the ground together to calm their breath. Only Qingming stood aside, motionless. This amount of exercise was nothing to him. The middle-aged ninja glanced at Qingming, didn't say much, just said, "Let's take advantage of the break time to get to know each other." "Okay, teacher, we don't even know your name yet." Ryosuke, who hadn't interrupted just now, spoke immediately. Hearing this, the middle-aged ninja nodded and introduced himself. "My name is Furukawa. As you can see, I am a Junin, 37 years old this year. I like playing shogi and hate people who don't follow the rules." After that, he looked at Ryosuke and said, "You go first. Tell me your name and age, what you like and hate, and what your ideals are." "Yes, Mr. Furukawa." After responding, Ryosuke introduced himself. "My name is Ryosuke, I am 10 years old this year. I like making friends, I hate any food containing coriander, and my ideal is to become a Hokage." "Hokage? Another guy who has been brainwashed by the will of fire," Qingming sighed in his heart. Furukawa nodded expressionlessly, then looked at Mizutani Shizuko and said, "What about you?" Mizutani Shizuko rested for a while and finally stopped panting when she spoke. She just said, "My name is Shizuko Mizutani. I will be 10 years old after the Chinese New Year. I like flower arranging and hate." Shizuko Mizutani thought for a while and shook her head. "I don't seem to have anything I particularly hate. As for my ideal," she looked around at the four people present and mustered up the courage to say, "My ideal is to become a medical ninja like Tsunade-sama." "Tsunade?" Qingming glanced at Shizuko Mizutani and thought to himself, "Tsunade is really famous. No wonder she can become the 5th Hokage after leaving the village for so long." Just as he was thinking, Furukawa cast his eyes on him and said, "It's your turn, Qingming." "Yeah." Qingming nodded and said, "My name is Uchiha Qingming. I'm 10 years old. I like to practice, I hate trouble, and my ideal." Qingming suddenly stopped talking about this. It was because he found that he seemed to have never considered the distant future, let alone any ideals. When he just crossed over, he was worried that his identity as an outsider would be exposed, so he practiced hard. After fully accepting the experience and memories of his predecessor, he was worried about his survival in the Ninja World War, so he continued to practice hard. The furthest thing he thought about was how to survive the disaster of genocide. He seemed to have never considered the future. "Qingming-kun." Seeing that Qingming suddenly stopped talking, Mizutani Shizuko poked his arm and called softly, "What's wrong?" If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Exercise. "Oh," Qingming was awakened by Mizutani Shizuko, then shook his head and said, "Nothing." After a short pause, Qingming continued the previous topic and said, "My ideal is to awaken the Sharingan and become a powerful ninja." Although he said this, Qingming did not regard it as his ideal. There is no other reason. With a continuous upgrading of the reflection heart technique, it is only a matter of time for him to awaken the Sharingan. In this way, with the assistance of the proficiency panel, it is almost certain that he will grow into a powerful ninja. In this way, it is naturally not a so-called ideal. If you really want to establish an ideal, then Qingming has only one ideal, that is, to transcend this world and see a wider scenery. No matter how big the ninja world is, it is just a tiny star in the vast universe. The reason why the extraordinary power of chakra appears is only because the Otsutsuki clan planted a tree. Since there's the Otsutsuki clan in the universe, there is no reason that there is only their clan. Seeing more scenery and mastering more powerful power will make it worthwhile for him to come to this world and take this journey. However, this idea can only be buried in the heart at this stage, and can't be told to anyone, so Qingming just found an excuse to act as his ideal. Sharingan? What Sharingan? Hearing Qingming's words, Ryosuke asked in confusion, and Mizutani Shizuko beside him also cast a curious look. After all, they are two little brats. Although they are precocious, they still maintain a strong curiosity about things beyond their understanding. Without waiting for Qingming to answer, Furukawa took the lead and said, Sharingan is the bloodline ability of the Uchiha clan. The ninja who opens the Sharingan is at least to the level of Chunin. The strongest. At this point, he paused and looked towards the direction of the Valley of the End outside the village. After a long time, he said leisurely, the strongest can be comparable to the god of the ninja world. The existence of Uchiha Madara is not a secret to some old-fashioned jonin, but few of the new generation know it. On the contrary, the name of the god of the ninja world is familiar to everyone. This is also due to the existence of the Hokage rock. Anyone who aspires to be a Hokage will unconsciously know the deeds of these people, and the first Hokage is no exception. When they learn about the deeds of the first Hokage who ended the chaos and founded the Hidden Leaf Village, they will naturally admire him. In this way, it is hard for Hashirama Senju not to be famous. But now, he suddenly found out that there is someone who can compare with him, and he was inevitably surprised. However, Furukawa did not go deeper into this topic. Although Uchiha Madara is not an absolute taboo in Konoha, it is not good to talk too much about it, and it may cause unnecessary trouble one day. Just now, he was just inspired after hearing Qingming's ideal. Although he didn't know much about the Uchiha clan, Furukawa knew that if he was assigned to him, it meant that Qingming didn't have much chance of awakening the Sharingan. Otherwise, there would be a senior ninja of the Uchiha clan to teach him personally. Therefore, awakening the Sharingan would only be an unattainable dream for Qingming. But Furukawa would not say it out loud. It's better to have a thought, so as not to slack off. After resting for about half an hour, Furukawa clapped his hands and said, Have you rested well? If you have, let's start the next test. There is another test. Ryosuke sat up straight upon hearing this, looking surprised. Beside him, Mizutani Shizuko also showed a sad expression on her face. Qingming, on the other hand, did not react much. Or rather, he had already guessed it. Although the drills before the official team formation would be different because of the experience of each of the leading jonin, in general, it would never be as simple as before. Therefore, Qingming had already guessed that there would be this. I just don't know what it will test. Teamwork? Or mental will? Thinking in his heart, Qingming was not too worried. Unless the psychological trauma was extremely serious like Kakashi, the test would not be too difficult. What's more, Konoha was in need of people at the moment. If everyone was kicked back to the ninja school, what would be the point of graduating early? To put it another way, Qingming didn't care even if he was kicked back to the ninja school. Or rather, that would be better. If he could survive for another year, his strength would surely increase significantly. When he goes to the battlefield again, his survival rate will undoubtedly be much higher. But Qingming knew that this was impossible. As for deliberately making mistakes and repeating a grade, do you really think that the Konoha high-level officials are just sitting there doing nothing? Just a random glance would immediately reveal the trick. You have so much chakra, but your strength is mediocre. No matter how you think about it, there is something wrong. By then, being regarded as a deserter would be fine, but if you were regarded as a spy, it would be a big trouble. So, it is better to let nature take its course. That was just a basic test for you, and the next one is the real test. At this point, Furukawa paused slightly, showing a malicious smile, and said, Also, I have a piece of news for you. Gulp. Looking at the ferocious smile on Furukawa's face, Ryosuke swallowed his saliva and asked cautiously, What news? If you don't pass the next test, you will be sent back to the ninja school and repeat the year again. What? Ryosuke stood up after hearing this. Obviously, for him, returning to school to retake the course was unacceptable. Teacher Furukawa, you are not kidding us, are you? Ryosuke asked embarrassedly. Furukawa chuckled twice, did not answer his question, just took out a scroll from his arms and said, Next, your goal is to take this scroll from me. Time. Furukawa glanced at the rising sun and said, Before noon, teacher, You are a Jonin, and the three of us are only Jinan. How can we take this scroll from you within 2 hours? Ryosuke is not Naruto, who is ignorant of the world. He still has some concept of the gap between ninjas. Not to mention that there are only 3 of them. Even if there are 30 more, I am afraid they may not be able to take anything from the Jonin. Furukawa glanced at Ryosuke, who was a little frustrated, and said, "Don't worry, I haven't finished talking yet. Next, I will not take the initiative to attack, and the means I use will not exceed the level of Jinan. Do you see the mountain in the distance?" Qingming and others looked in the direction of his palm, and saw a mountain in the distance, about an hour away from here. I will go there later. You can ambush or sneak attack. As long as you get the scroll from me before noon, you will pass the test. Is that so? It's a bit possible. Ryosuke touched his chin and looked thoughtful. Qingming rolled his eyes secretly when he heard what the other party said, thinking, where do you get your confidence from? We are just 3 blank Jinan. Even if others suppress our strength to the level of Jinan, those combat experiences are not fake. However, these words are just said in his heart. Qingming knows that Furukawa will not deliberately make things difficult for them. Judging from the test he set up, it is obviously closer to actual combat, and it is likely to test their abilities in this area. Then, in this process, observe what they do and determine their strengths and weaknesses, so as to lay the foundation for teaching them in accordance with their aptitude. Chapter 16 Pass. While Qingming was thinking, Guchuin had already distanced himself and said, "You guys can discuss it slowly. I'll go first." After saying that, he turned around and left. However, just as he finished speaking, Qingming had already rushed out, and on the way he had already taken out several shurikens from his ninja bag. Swish swish swish, shurikens flew out. Most of them were used by him to block his escape path, and only 2 went straight to Guchuin's throat and heart. Qingming's attack was swift and fierce. If it were other Jinan, he might have been seriously injured by his sudden attack. But Guchuin was different. Just as Qingming thought, although the opponent's strength was suppressed to the level of Jinan, his combat experience was not comparable to that of ordinary Jinan. It was seen that the moment Qingming attacked, the opponent reacted. Only 2 dings were heard, and the 2 shurikens that attacked him were accurately blocked by his kunai. But this also gave Qingming a chance. Seeing that Guchuin's middle door was wide open, Qingming, who had already come close, did not hesitate at all and immediately swung out his kunai and stabbed it straight into his chest and abdomen. Feeling the chill coming from his chest, Guchuin smiled, and then with just a light step back, he avoided Qingming's attack. The difference in size between adults and minors was revealed vividly at this moment. Qingming's perfect attack was easily resolved by Guchuin just because of his size disadvantage. Qingming did not have many complaints about this. After all, on the battlefield, who cares whether you are an adult or not? Since you are not as big as the opponent, you should find a way to turn this disadvantage into a balance or even an advantage, instead of complaining about the world. With this thought, Qingming's body swayed slightly, and the whole person was like a monkey, deftly going around to his side and avoiding the opponent's counterattack. Then, he kicked his right leg diagonally and hit his back. Why not kick the back of the head? Qingming also wanted to, but unfortunately he was not tall enough, so he could only kick his back. However, Guchuin was unwilling to give such an opportunity. He ducked, dodged Qingming's kick, and thrust his elbow straight at Qingming's face. Not good. Qingming's heart trembled, and he quickly raised his arm to block. Bang! A dull collision sound came, and Qingming felt his arm go numb, and the whole person flew backwards involuntarily. In mid-air, Qingming adjusted his body shape, and finally landed on the ground in a fairly elegant posture. Qingming-kun. It was not until this time that Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko reacted, and quickly drew out their kunai and came to Qingming. "Qingming, are you okay?" Ryosuke stared at Furukawa with his eyes fixed, and asked without turning his head. "It's okay." Qingming slowly stood up and replied. Not far away, Furukawa put away his kunai and said in a flat tone, "Qingming, your strength is not bad, but you alone can't take the scroll from me." After saying that, he jumped a few times and left everyone's sight, disappearing into the depths of the dense forest. Huh? After Furukawa left, Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko both breathed a sigh of relief. Although they had just stood up, they were still a little timid in front of a Jonin. Qingming didn't care much about this. The reason why he took action just now was just to try his luck. If it works, it would be the best. If it doesn't, he can also use it to test Furukawa's strength. In this way, he can have a bottom line in his heart. Qingming, what should we do next? Ryosuke retracted his gaze and looked at Qingming and said. Not only him, but Mizutani Shizuko also cast his eyes on him. Obviously, these two people have regarded him as the backbone. This is also one of Qingming's purposes. Only when you show your own strength will others listen to you, otherwise, why would others follow your ideas? Now it's good. With what happened just now, I believe the two companions will act according to his ideas. Although Qingming doesn't care about the position of captain, it's better to have less trouble. Thinking of this, Qingming looked at the two and said, since Mr. Furukawa said this is a test, there will be no fatal danger. We just need to go all out. Yeah, why didn't I think of that? Ryosuke pounded his palm and shouted excitedly, then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Oh, if only it were that simple. Qingming was sure that the road ahead would definitely not be easy, but he didn't say much. It would be best if his teammates could stay motivated like this. As for the rest, we'll talk about it later. Thinking of this, Qingming said, okay, let's go. I'll be in front, Shizuko in the middle, and Ryosuke, you watch the back. What? Hearing Qingming's arrangement, Ryosuke asked in confusion, didn't Mr. Furukawa say that he wouldn't take the initiative to attack? Why do you have to watch the back? There's nothing wrong with being careful, Qingming replied. Okay, Ryosuke nodded reluctantly agreeing to Qingming's arrangement. Where's Shizuko? Qingming asked. Shizuko Mizutani shook her head and said timidly, I have no problem. Well, let's go. After that, Qingming took the lead and chased in the direction where Furukawa left. Shizuko Mizutani and Ryosuke followed closely behind. And underground, unknown to Qingming and the other two, Furukawa performed the earth escape, fish reflection in the earth technique, hid himself underground, and secretly observed their every move. When he heard Qingming's words it's not wrong to be careful, he nodded with satisfaction. For a ninja, being careful is a quality that must be possessed at all times. Qingming still did so after he told her that he would not take the initiative to attack, which is enough to show the caution in his nature. If it was just that, it would be fine. But in connection with the attack he just took the initiative to launch, it can be seen that he himself is not lacking in adventurous spirit. Being careful and cautious reveals courage and decisiveness. This is a natural ninja. Qingming didn't know that he was just acting according to some memories of his previous life, but he actually left a very high evaluation from Furukawa. However, even if he knew, he would not care. Other people's evaluations are just other people's opinions. A good ironsmith must be strong himself. As long as he improves his own strength, then everything he does is reasonable. Let's turn our attention back to Qingming and others. Qingming and his three companions rushed through the forest, searching for traces deliberately left by Guchuin according to the knowledge taught by the school teacher. They encountered many traps and dangers on the way, but with the efforts of Qingming and others, they were eliminated one by one. Near noon, the three finally arrived at the mountain and saw Guchuin who arrived before them. Seeing them, Guchuin threw the scroll in his hand and said, time is running out. What are you going to do? What should I do? Qingming and Ryosuke looked at each other, then ran out together, one on the left and one on the right, and pounced on Guchuin. At the same time, Shizuko Mizutani forced herself to be energetic and threw several shurikens and kunai at a high speed to restrict Guchuin's actions. Guchuin's figure flashed one after another and avoided Shizuko Mizutani's attack. Taking this opportunity, Qingming came to the other side, and the kunai in his hand slashed straight out, cutting straight to his waist and abdomen. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound was heard, and Furukawa blocked Qingming's attack with a kunai. Just at this moment, Ryosuke rushed over, and the kunai in his hand stabbed directly at Furukawa's back. It was about to hit, but I don't know if it was because he was afraid of hurting Furukawa, or what. His action hesitated for a moment. But it was this hesitation that missed the opportunity, allowing Furukawa to dodge sideways. Boy, faced the enemy. Furukawa dodged the attack and was about to say something, but suddenly he saw Ryosuke smile slightly, and his left hand reached towards his chest where the scroll was hidden at an extremely fast speed, and his movements were much more agile than before. Not good, Furukawa cursed inwardly, cunning boy, and quickly leaned back. Because of the problem of standing position and height, Ryosuke's left hand could only barely touch Furukawa's chest, which was not enough to take out the scroll. Seeing this, Furukawa breathed a sigh of relief and said to himself, that was a close call. However, at this moment, Ryosuke's right hand holding the kunai turned around and stabbed the kunai into Furukawa's lower abdomen cleanly. Seeing this, Qingming, Who rushed up first, screamed, and his body shape changed from Qingming's appearance to Ryosuke's appearance. Seeing this, Furukawa looked down at Ryosuke in front of him, and a hint of admiration appeared in his eyes. Then, his body shape turned into a ball of chakra smoke. A scroll fell from the smoke, which was the mission target of Qingming and others. Chapter 17 Chakra Control. Picking up the scroll on the ground, Qingming lifted the transformation technique and changed back to himself from Ryosuke's appearance. That's right, the Qingming and Ryosuke just now were both fake. In order to let Furukawa relax his guard, the two had already exchanged their identities with a transformation technique before they appeared. In this way, they could successfully take the scroll from Furukawa. However, what Qingming didn't expect was that Furukawa, who had been fighting wits and courage with them, was also fake. A mere shadow clone could fool them around, which made Qingming have a clearer understanding of the strength of the Jonin. Papapapa. At this moment, a burst of applause came from far away. The three looked in the direction of the sound, only to see Furukawa walking out of the woods leisurely. Teacher Furukawa, X2 Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko, who had just recovered from the shock, saw the person coming and hurriedly greeted him. Furukawa nodded to them, then looked at Qingming and said, "You didn't hesitate when you attacked just now. Aren't you afraid of hurting me?" Hearing this, Qingming shook his head and replied, "Teacher Furukawa is a Jonin. Such an attack can't really hurt you. If we don't have the determination to kill you, we can't take the scroll from you." "Not bad." Furukawa nodded with satisfaction, and then said to the other two, "You are not bad either. Then teacher, do you think we passed the test?" Ryosuke, who had recovered from his shock, asked anxiously. Of course, Furukawa smiled and replied, "Congratulations, you don't have to go back to school to retake it." "Yeah," Ryosuke shouted excitedly when he heard this. Mizutani Shizuko beside him also showed an excited expression. Only Qingming was still serious. After everyone was excited, Furukawa spoke again. "To celebrate the establishment of Class 17, the teacher will treat you to barbecue." Hearing this news, Ryosuke became even more excited. Even Qingming's mouth curled up a smile. It was nothing, he almost vomited from eating the Binglian pills for a while. Although he would occasionally improve his food, it was not as delicious as barbecue, and he was reluctant to spend money on it before. Now he can have a meal openly, naturally very happy. Afternoon. Uchiha Clan Land. Qingming returned home, thinking back to Guchuin's painful expression just now, he couldn't help but want to laugh. However, these are trivial matters. A whole morning has been wasted, it's time to hurry up and complete today's training plan. At this stage, when the chakra refining technique cannot break through LV2, and the physical and mental attributes are stable, the maximum amount of chakra he can use every day is 2,400–2,500 points. Among them, he plans to use 2,000 points on the practice of reflection of the heart technique. In this way, the reflection of the heart technique can gain 10 points of proficiency every day, and his Sharingan awakening progress will also increase by 1 point. In this way, within half a month, his Sharingan awakening progress will reach 70 out of 100. As for the future, it will require further planning. Because by then, his reflection heart technique will be upgraded to level 2. At that time, the chakra consumed for one cast may change, and the effect of promoting the awakening of the Sharingan will also change. In this way, the plan will naturally change accordingly. However, gather in front of the Hokage building at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we will officially start accepting missions. Thinking of what Guchuin said when they just separated, Qingming couldn't help but frown. As he thought, the village did not intend to send these newbies to the battlefield immediately, but they would not let them sit idle. In the next period of time, they are likely to perform some tasks such as finding cats and dogs, picking up garbage, and taking care of children like previous students. Although this is to familiarize them with the task process and let them adapt to the life of ninjas, it is undoubtedly a waste of time. If he wants to make the most of his chakra, he must ensure more than 10 hours of meditation time every day to refine chakra. Obviously, the two are contradictory. It takes time to carry out tasks, and it also takes time to practice. There are only 24 hours in a day. Apart from eating, drinking, defecating and resting, there is not much time at all. Therefore, he must find a way to resolve this conflict. After pondering for a long time, Qingming roughly thought of 3 ways. The first is to increase the speed of the body's self-recovery of chakra. This requires improving the physical and mental attributes. There is no hope in a short period of time, so it can be temporarily abandoned. The second is to increase the amount of chakra that is actively restored per unit time. This requires improving the level of the chakra refining technique, but the chakra refining technique LV2 to LV3 requires 500 points of proficiency. Now, its proficiency is less than 70. Even if you meditate and refine for 12 hours a day to the maximum extent, it will take more than a month to increase the proficiency by 12 points. There is no hope in a short period of time, so it can only be postponed temporarily. Then, there is only the third way left. The next day, in the afternoon, under the leadership of Uchiha Qingming and the other two, each carrying a backpack, picked up garbage in a river on the edge of the village. During this period, Ryosuke complained from time to time. Qingming waded through the river, moving forward cautiously while bending over to pick up garbage. If you look closely, you can see that his feet did not touch the bottom of the river, and he just stepped on the water and moved forward. A few minutes later. Proficiency +1. Chakra control, LV0, 60 out of 100, LV0, 61/100. Yes, this is the third method Qingming thought of. That is, improve the chakra control to reduce the chakra required for practicing ninjutsu. For a ninja, the amount of chakra required for each ninjutsu is different. If too much or too little chakra is mobilized, the ninjutsu may fail. Even if it does not fail, it may cause a waste of chakra. Therefore, how to accurately control chakra is a problem that every ninja needs to consider. After continuous exploration, the ninja world has formed a set of effective training methods, which is climbing trees and treading water. For a ninja, it is the most difficult to gather chakra at the soles of the feet, and the amount of chakra required for climbing trees and treading water is very subtle. As long as there is a slight mistake, it will fail. Therefore, as long as you practice these two, you can basically master your own chakra. And this is what Qingming is doing. Panel. With a thought, Qingming summoned the proficiency panel. A familiar light blue screen of light emerged, filling his field of vision. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 6 spirit, 7 chakra, 215, 862,910, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 57 out of 100, 58 out of 100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV2, 69 out of 500, LV2, 81 out of 500, clone technique, LV2, 1/500, transformation technique, LV2, 1/500, substitution technique, LV2, 1/500, fire style, great fireball technique, LV1, 1/200, reflection of the heart technique, LV1, 65 out of 200, LV1, 77 out of 200, basic taijutsu, LV2, 1/500, ninja tool throwing, LV2, 120/500, chakra control, level 0, 61/100, chakra control training does not require too much chakra consumption, nor does it require a separate time for practice. Therefore, Qingming quickly upgraded it to level 0, 61 out of 100. At this time, when he performs the same ninjutsu, the chakra he consumes can be reduced by about 3%. Although it is only a little bit, it should not be underestimated when a little bit adds up to a lot. What's more, with continuous practice, his chakra control will gradually upgrade, and the effect will also increase. With the same amount of chakra, performing more ninjutsu, wouldn't it solve the problem of insufficient time in disguise? The only thing that may be affected is probably the proficiency of chakra refining technique. However, his focus is not on this now, so it doesn't matter if it's a little slower. Chapter 18, Half a Month. Qingming, what are you doing? Just when Qingming was thinking about whether he could master chakra control before handing in the task today, Liangji's voice suddenly came from the side. He stared at his feet and said in shock, "Why can you stand in the water?" Qingming looked down and found that the water quality here was good. He could clearly see his feet floating in the water. Qingming did not hide it and told him that he was practicing chakra control. "What's the use of this?" Liangji asked in confusion after listening to Qingming's narration. Without waiting for Qingming to explain, Guchuan said, "Of course it is useful, and very useful." As he spoke, he had already walked over from a distance. Teacher, X3 Qingming and the other two saw him and greeted him in unison. Yet, Furukawa nodded, glanced at Qingming's feet, and then continued, "Practicing the skill well can help you save chakra when learning and releasing ninjutsu, And it can also help you maintain longer endurance in battle. Then can we learn it? Ryosuke asked hopefully. Hearing this, Furukawa thought for a while, and then said, I didn't intend to teach you this so early, but since Qingming has already started practicing, you should follow suit. In fact, he had discovered Qingming's little tricks a long time ago, and the reason why he didn't say much was just to see how far Qingming could go without guidance. Facts have proved that even if Qingming is not a top genius, he is better than most people. It is not something that ordinary people can do to improve chakra control to this level in just a few hours. What's more, he has not yet practiced in the best way, that is, climbing trees first and then treading water. If he had guidance from the beginning, the progress would definitely be faster. But this is just Furukawa's own opinion. For Qingming, there is no need to practice step by step. With a proficiency panel, he only needs to follow the standard process, gather chakra at the bottom of his feet, and maintain it for a period of time to gain a little proficiency. As this proficiency accumulates, his control over chakra will also improve rapidly. In this way, there is naturally no need to start from climbing trees, because it will not significantly increase the speed of his accumulation of proficiency. Teacher, then we have to start treading water training too, Ryosuke shouted excitedly on the side. No, Furukawa directly denied it. Why? Ryosuke asked puzzledly. Isn't Qingming practicing like this? That's because others are geniuses. Furukawa wanted to say this, but he couldn't say it, because it would discourage the enthusiasm of students. So, he said tactfully, everyone's situation is different. Qingming can start from treading water, but you can't. Then how should we practice? Ryosuke asked. Climb a tree, Furukawa replied. Climb a tree. X2 Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko spoke at the same time. That's right, Furukawa nodded and said to Qingming, you practice here by yourself first. Yeah, Qingming responded, indicating that he understood. You guys follow me, Furukawa called Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko, and then the three of them walked towards the woods not far away. After that, it was a familiar process, gathering chakra, sprinting, climbing up the tree, falling down, sprinting again, climbing again, and falling again. Perhaps because of Qingming's example, Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko both practice very hard. Although Ryosuke usually seems carefree and doesn't care about anything, he is actually very strong-willed. Although he didn't say anything on the surface about Furukawa's different treatment, he secretly wanted to prove himself, so he practiced very seriously. Not only him, Mizutani Shizuko also has a soft exterior and a strong interior. Although she often keeps silent and doesn't seem to have many opinions, she will spare no effort to complete things she has decided on. It can be said that Qingming's two companions are not mediocre. However, think about it, if there are no advantages, how could he be assigned to a group with him and taught by a real Jonin? However, Qingming had never even heard of these two people in his previous life. It is very likely that they died in the Third Ninja World War or in subsequent missions. From this, we can also see the cruelty of the Ninja World War and the danger of the Ninja Road. Whenever thinking of this, Qingming dare not relax at all, and can only seize every opportunity to improve himself so as to make plans for the future. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, another half a month has passed. Time has come to the beginning of November. Uchiha clan land. Qingming's home. Late at night, Qingming completed the last round of training and opened the panel with a tired spirit. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 6 spirit, 7 chakra, 16, 9,101,546, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 58 out of 100, 71 out of 100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV2, 81 out of 500, LV2, 240 out of 500, clone technique, LV2, 1/500, LV2, 140 out of 500, transformation technique, LV2, 1/500, LV2, 130 out of 500, substitution technique, LV2, 1/500, LV2, 110/500, fire style, great fireball technique, LV1, 1/200, LV1, 16/200, heart reflection technique, LV1, 77/200, LV2, 1/500, basic taijutsu, LV2, 1/500, LV2, 150/500, ninja tool throwing, LV2, 120/500, LV2, 260/500, chakra control, LV0, 61/100, LV2, 350/500. In the past half month, everything has been going smoothly. During the day, he followed a team to perform some tasks that did not require any technical skills, and at night he practiced alone. At first, the tasks did affect his practice. But as chakra control continued to upgrade, the impact became smaller and smaller. From LV0 to LV1, the chakra required for him to release ninjutsu was reduced by 5%. From LV1 to LV2, it became 10%. Now, with a proficiency increase to LV2, 350/500, the chakra saved has reached 13.5%. In other words, for the same ninjutsu, he now saves nearly 15% of chakra compared to the initial chakra. Obviously, this is not a small number. In this way, and taking into account the occasional extra training when not on a mission, in the end, he only upgraded the heart-reflecting technique to level 2 a day or two later than planned. And the awakening progress of his Sharingan also increased by 13 points as expected, from 58 out of 100 to 71/100. The only pity is that after the heart-reflecting technique was upgraded to level 2, the minimum chakra consumption when performing it did not decrease, but the speed of forming seals was much faster. However, this did not work for him. Fortunately, with the upgrade of the heart-reflecting technique, the awakening progress of the Sharingan, which had slowed down slightly before, returned to its original speed. In a short period of time, it is still possible to maintain the proficiency of 10 heart-reflecting techniques and pull the awakening progress of 1 Sharingan. Now it depends on how long this speed can be maintained. As for clearing the level in one go, Qingming has never thought about this. If it were really that simple, someone in the Uchiha clan would have awakened the Sharingan with this technique long ago. Qingming estimated that he would have to at least raise the reflection of the heart technique to level 3 before he could succeed. But this was not a difficult task for him. In addition to the reflection of the heart technique and the awakening of the Sharingan, his other skills had also improved in the past half month. This was mainly due to the training of Furukawa. Unfortunately, due to the limited amount of chakra input, his growth rate was average. Skills that did not consume much chakra, such as the 3-body technique, basic physical technique and ninja tool throwing, all increased their proficiency by more than 100 points. Chakra control, because it could be practiced anytime and anywhere, directly soared 2 levels, from entry level to level 2, 350 out of 500. This was already the highest level of all his skills. On the other hand, fire style, great fireball technique, because it consumed at least 100 chakra points each time it was released, Qingming hardly practiced it, so it only increased its proficiency by a dozen points. In addition, there was another biggest change, that was his chakra limit increased from 910 points to 1,546 points. This is almost the middle level among civilian shunins. I can only say that the gap between people is sometimes greater than that between people and dogs. It is said that Kakashi has less blue, but when the Sharingan continues to consume blue, Kakashi can also use Reikiri and Kamui several times. These are all S-level ninjutsu and I techniques. Even this does not include B-level ninjutsu such as Earth Style, Earth Flow Wall and Lightning Style, Shadow Clone performed during the battle. If all are counted, according to the calculation method of the panel, the amount of chakra may be more than 10,000 points. So, lack of blue is only relative. The chakra of many Jonins may not reach Kakashi's level. Therefore, Qingming still has a lot of room for improvement. Chapter 19 Sea-Level Mission. The next day, at 9 in the morning, Qingming arrived in front of the Hokage building on time. Before he approached, Ryosuke's voice came from afar. Qingming, here. Qingming looked in the direction of the voice and saw Ryosuke waving his arms and Mizutani Shizuko standing quietly beside him. So he walked over quickly. Qingming-kun, seeing Qingming coming, Mizutani Shizuko whispered. Yet, Shizuko. Qingming nodded and responded. Qingming, why are you here on time again? Can't you come earlier? Ryosuke looked at Qingming, who was not in a hurry, and complained. Qingming knew that the other party had no ill intentions, so he replied casually, you came early. The teacher said to gather at 9 o'clock, but it's not even 9 o'clock now. Hey. Hearing this, Ryosuke sighed lightly and muttered speechlessly, you are so mysterious all day long. You leave after completing the task. I don't know what you are doing. What are you doing? Of course, you are practicing. However, you only need to know these things yourself, and there is no need to say them out. Therefore, Qingming pretended not to hear him and waited quietly for Guchuan's arrival. During this period, he did not forget to gather a small amount of chakra under his feet to brush up his proficiency in chakra control. Although this is not as efficient as climbing a tree or treading water, it can be done anytime and anywhere, so the progress is not bad. Qingming estimated that in 4 or 5 days, he would be able to upgrade to level 3. By then, he could save 15% of chakra. However, it would be more difficult to go further. Qingming has vaguely felt a limit of this proficiency brushing method. When it reaches level 3, it may be difficult to accumulate proficiency simply by gathering chakra under the soles of the feet. Even if it is possible, the efficiency will probably be greatly reduced. After that, maybe I have to find some other methods to practice. As for the goal, Qingming has roughly it, that is the chakra line used by the puppeteer of the Sands village to control the puppet. It is not a simple matter to condense chakra into such a thin line and control it flexibly and freely. The chakra control required is definitely not low. If you can get the corresponding training method, you will definitely be able to improve the level of chakra control. However, these are all later. At this stage, the focus is still on awakening the Sharingan. At 9 o'clock, a figure appeared silently. It was none other than Furukawa. Teacher, X3. Seeing the person coming, Qingming and others hurriedly greeted him. Yet, Furukawa nodded, his eyes swept across Qingming's feet, and then he said, "Since you are already here, let's go in." After that, he walked towards the Hokage building. Qingming and others hurriedly followed. After passing through the door, everyone came to a spacious hall. There was a circle of wooden counters in the hall, and behind the counters sat a Chunin, who was the staff responsible for reviewing and issuing tasks. Qingming and his group walked towards it. On the way, Ryosuke asked boredly, "Teacher Furukawa, what mission are we taking this time? Picking up trash or taking care of children?" "No," Furukawa said without turning his head, "we are taking a sea-level mission this time." "What?" Hearing this, not only Ryosuke was shocked, but even Qingming showed a bit of surprise. "You know, in Konoha, newly graduated Jonin usually have to perform more than 8 D-level missions before they are allowed to take C-level missions. This is also the minimum threshold for participating in the Chunin exam. Generally speaking, D-level missions do not involve combat, and are mainly for rookie Jonin to practice, basically some trivial matters. C-level missions will involve combat. Although there will be no battle with ninjas, there is a high possibility of encountering bandits, mountain bandits, robbers, gangsters and other thugs. Therefore, it is not absolutely safe. In the past half-month, they have only performed a total of 4 missions, and they were all D-level, which does not meet the conditions for taking C-level missions. It seems that Konoha is going to speed up the growth of our group. Qingming came to this conclusion almost in an instant. This also made his calm heart, which had finally calmed down, feel a little more urgent. Konoha did not send them directly to the battlefield, but it did not think of training them step by step. If he was right, it would not be long before they would go to the battlefield. Great, we can finally leave the village. Looking at Ryosuke, who is still excited, Qingming did not say much, but just followed behind Guchuan quietly. Although the other party was his companion, he did not need to remind him of everything, as the other party also needed to grow up. In front of the counter, after talking with the staff, Guchuan got a scroll. After opening it, there was a task inside. Task: suppress the bandits' content. A group of bandits entrenched on Ziohai Mountain has a huge impact on the business road below the mountain, and they need to be eliminated as soon as possible. Level: C-level requirements: kill all the bandits. Reward: 75,000 taels. It turned out to be a direct combat task. It really values actual combat ability more. After reading the content on the scroll, Qingming glanced at Guchuan and muttered in his heart. From the content of the survival drill, it can be seen that compared with other teachers who pay more attention to students' character, Furukawa obviously pays more attention to actual ability. For the same C-level mission, direct combat missions are obviously more difficult than escort missions. After all, the former is almost certain to involve a fight, while the latter is likely to be safe and sound. Bandits and thieves are also human beings, and they are also afraid of death. Seeing that the target is guarded by ninjas, they may give up entanglement. So it is possible to avoid fighting. In this case, The novice Sharingan who performs the mission only needs to bear the psychological pressure and does not need to fight in real life. On the contrary, direct combat missions are different. They'll really need to fight with real swords and guns, and blood will inevitably be seen during the period. Logically speaking, even if you accept a C-level mission, you should start with the easy ones and then the difficult ones, but Furikal obviously has no such intention and starts with the most difficult ones. This will inevitably cause greater pressure on the Sharingan. Just like now, after reading the content of the mission, Ryosuke, who was excited and shouting just now, immediately quieted down, and Mizutani Shizuko beside him also turned pale. After all, they are only about 10 years old. Even though they have learned a lot of killing skills in the ninja school, they are still a little hesitant when it comes to killing. Not to mention them, even Qingming, an adult, can't help but feel a little disturbed when he knows what he is about to do. As a young man who grew up in a peaceful era, Qingming has an instinctive reverence for life. Even if he traveled through time and accepted the memories of his predecessor, it is not so easy to break the three views that have been established. However, he also knows that in the ninja world, where human life is worthless, if he cannot break through the psychological barriers, then only death will greet him. In order to protect himself, he can only let his fellow Taoist die rather than himself. What's more, these bandits are not good people. Killing them is also to eliminate harm for the people, so there is no need to have too much psychological burden. As if he had convinced himself, Qingming breathed a sigh of relief, and his mood gradually calmed down. Looking at the three people who were silent, Guchuan did not say anything to comfort them, but just ordered, "Now go back and pack your equipment, and gather at the village gate at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Remember, don't be late." After that, he left the hall with a body flash technique. Looking at Guchuan who disappeared without a trace, Qingming retracted his gaze and looked at his two bewildered companions. He also did not say anything to comfort them, but just said "I'm leaving first" and walked away. Looking at Qingming's back, Ryosuke raised his hand and wanted to say something, but when the words came to his lips, he gave up in the end. Chapter 20 Arrival. Back home. Qingming sat for a while, and then began to pack up his equipment. Although they were leaving tomorrow, the equipment could be prepared early, so they would not be in a hurry when the time came, and they could also check for omissions and make up for them later. Taking the ninja tool bag, Qingming began to put things in it. 6 kunai, 15 shurikens, a roll of steel wire, 5 detonating talismans, a can of ointment for treating external injuries, 2 rolls of bandages, 3 commonly used detoxification pills, and a pack of military ration pills. As for other things such as maps, Guchuan would bring them, so he didn't need to worry about them. After doing all this, Qingming began to seize the time to practice. It happened that he didn't have to go on a mission today, so he could complete his training early and then reserve chakra for tomorrow's mission. Although it was just a simple bandit suppression mission, he had to leave the village after all, so Qingming would not be careless. Now is a time of war, and there is no telling how many enemy ninjas have infiltrated the territory of the Land of Fire. Although their main mission is to undermine the stability of the Land of Fire, attack the logistics transportation lines, assassinate important figures, and collect intelligence, who knows if they will be killed easily after meeting them. No matter how strong Furikal is, he is only a Jonin. If they are besieged, they can't save their lives. Of course, it is more likely that the two sides will not meet. In this way, they can complete their tasks with peace of mind. But what if? Qingming never pins his hopes on luck, so the necessary preparations must be made. It is unrealistic to learn new ninjutsu at the last minute, and it is impossible to upgrade the ninjutsu that has been learned in such a short time. The biggest trump card, the Sharingan, cannot be awakened just by awakening. Therefore, in addition to equipment, the most important thing is to ensure that there is enough chakra in the body before departure. This requires him to complete today's training as soon as possible, and then reserve chakra for tomorrow's action. With this thought, Qingming closed his eyes and began to refine chakra. Time passed by minute. The room gradually became quiet, leaving only the subtle breathing of Qingming. The next day, in the morning, a quarter before 10 o'clock, Qingming arrived at the gate of Konoha. From a distance, he saw Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko. The two were fully armed today, but they were not as energetic as yesterday. Seeing Qingming coming over, Ryosuke forced a smile, covered his mouth and yawned, then said, "Why are you here so early today?" Qingming did not answer this question, but asked back, "Look at you two, did you not sleep well last night?" Hearing Qingming's question, Mizutani Shizuko, with panda eyes, lowered her head embarrassedly, and Ryosuke also said embarrassedly, "No, nothing." Obviously, they did not want Qingming to know their embarrassment. After all, Qingming looked no different from usual, even more energetic. This made them feel a little inferior. Just when the three people were thinking differently, Furukawa appeared in front of them. "Teacher, X3 Qingming and the other two greeted. "Yes," Furukawa nodded, his eyes swept over the three people, taking their status into consideration, but he didn't say much, just asked, "Are all the equipment ready?" "Yes." The three people replied in unison. "Well, let's set off now." After that, he took the lead and ran out of the village. Seeing this, Qingming and others immediately followed. On the way, no one spoke. Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko's hearts, which were still a little uneasy, gradually calmed down in this boring journey. A few hours later, the sky gradually darkened. A few hundred meters away from Ziohai Mountain, Qingming and others stopped. After such a long journey without rest, although the overall speed was not fast, everyone was exhausted. To be more precise, it was Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko who were exhausted, especially Mizutani Shizuko, who was almost exhausted. Among the four, she had the weakest physique. If it weren't for the belief that supported her, I'm afraid she would have fallen down long ago. Furukawa, needless to say, this level of exercise is nothing for a Jonin. Qingming's physique has been improved a little, and it has also surpassed ordinary people. Coupled with the abundant chakra, he has been running until now, except for a little heavy breathing, there is nothing serious. As for Ryosuke, his situation is slightly better than Mizutani Shizuko, and he still has some spare strength, but it would be too difficult for him to fight. Fortunately, Furukawa did not ask them to go to suppress the bandits immediately, otherwise Qingming would have to act alone. After stopping, Furukawa glanced at the three people and said, "Take the time to rest. In 2 hours, we will start the mission." Hearing this, Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko sat down on the ground. The two opened their ninja tool bags, each took out a ration pill and stuffed it into their mouths, chewed it and swallowed it, and then began to take the time to rest. Qingming also swallowed a ration pill, but did not rest. Instead, he climbed to the top of the tree and took out a monocular telescope to observe the direction of Ziohai Mountain before the night fell completely. He bought this telescope this morning. He didn't have any jutsu for detection, so he could only use this for now. As for Furukawa, why was he so careful? The reason was simple. Furukawa had said on the way that after arriving here, he would no longer provide any opinions or suggestions, and would not take any action during the mission. Everything had to be done by themselves. That's why Qingming was so careful. Fortunately, the bandits didn't get the news of his arrival and took the initiative to attack. During the time he was observing, they stayed safely on the mountain. What? How could the bandits get this news? That's hard to say. What if Furukawa wanted to increase the difficulty of the mission and deliberately leaked the information? Would the other party know? For a senior ninja, it's not difficult to do this without telling them. Fortunately, Furukawa is not so crazy. In fact, Qingming misunderstood the other party. Furukawa values the students' actual combat ability and wants to train them as soon as possible, so that they have a better chance of survival in the future battlefield. But he will also consider the students' tolerance. It was obvious that, apart from Qingming, Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko were already approaching their limits both psychologically and physically under heavy pressure, so there was no need to do anything unnecessary. Therefore, after seeing Qingming's actions, even Furukawa, who usually showed a serious attitude, couldn't help but twitch his lips. Obviously, he had guessed Qingming's thoughts. By the way, am I that crazy? Furukawa recalled what he had done and said to himself, it seems not, right. However, he admired Qingming even more. It's okay to practice hard, but the key is not to be arrogant or impatient, and to do things seriously and carefully. No matter when and where, being careful is a must for ninjas. If you have to choose the one who is most likely to survive the battlefield from the three, Furukawa will definitely choose Qingming. Because his personality determines the highest chance of survival. As for strength? Sorry, in the battlefield that is like a meat grinder, even a Jonin may not be able to save his life, let alone a Jonin? Hey, I hope everyone can survive. With a sigh, Furukawa withdrew his gaze from Qingming, and flashed to another big tree, looking into the distance. His eyes seemed to pass through the mountains and forests, and saw the ninjas from various villages fighting on the front line. Chapter 21 Kill. Crack! A crisp bone-breaking sound was heard. Qingming expressionlessly took his hand away from the head of a mountain bandit and let his body slowly fall to the ground. He exhaled lightly. Turning back, Qingming looked at Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko and said, "The light and dark sentries have all been dealt with. Next, follow the plan, Shizuko." Yes. Hearing Qingming's call, Mizutani Shizuko stood up straight unconsciously. "You keep an eye on the way down the mountain and take care of the fish that slipped through the net," Qingming said. Yes, although still a little nervous, Mizutani Shizuko nodded seriously, indicating that she understood. Then, Qingming looked at Ryosuke and said, "Ryosuke, you and I will go up the mountain and wipe out those mountain bandits, no problem." Compared to Mizutani Shizuko, Ryosuke was much calmer. Even if he had to carry out a more dangerous mission, he was not very timid. How should I put it? As expected of a child born in the ninja world, he adjusted so quickly. After taking a deep look at each other, Qingming said, "Then let's get started." Yes, Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko nodded in agreement. Qingming immediately rushed up the mountain. Ryosuke followed closely behind him. Mizutani Shizuko stood there for a while, then went into the dense forest and hid her body. It had been 3 hours since they arrived at the border of Zyohei Mountain. They rested for the first 2 hours and spent the last hour cleaning up the sentry posts. Now that the obstacles have been cleared, it's time to launch a general attack. The general attack seems a bit exaggerated. From the sentries, Qingming already knew that there were only about 50 people on the mountain, and there were probably less than 40 people alive now. As long as there were no oversized people, there was no pressure on them. The only thing they needed to pay attention to was to overcome the psychological barriers. Fortunately, both Qingming and Ryosuke adapted well, under the moonlight. Qingming and Liangji stepped on rocks and branches and approached the camp of the mountain bandits silently. It was called a camp, but it was actually just a wooden building with more than 20 wooden houses. There was not even a wooden fence outside. Seeing this simple camp, Qingming finally understood why they had to send so many sentries. They were afraid of death. Shaking his head and not thinking about it anymore, Qingming made a few gestures to Liangji, and then the two of them moved towards the camp from the left and right. The wooden building was the residence of the mountain bandit leader, located in the center of the camp. In order to avoid being surrounded, he and Liangji decided to kill from the outside. As long as the speed is fast enough, there is no need to worry about alerting the enemy. Punchy! The sound of a sharp blade entering the flesh sounded. In a wooden house, Qingming covered the mouth of the mountain bandit with one hand and sent a kunai into his chest with the other hand. Severely injured, the mountain bandit opened his eyes immediately, first confused, then in pain, then in fear, and finally turned into deadish. Qingming stared at the other person's eyes the whole time, without escaping or dodging, just watching quietly, forcing himself to accept all of this and adapt to it. Before he had the ability to change the world, he could only learn to adapt. Only by adapting to the rules of the ninja world could he live better. After exhaling gently and confirming that the target was dead, Qingming left the wooden house. This wooden house was at the outermost edge. Whether it was the geographical location or the wooden house itself, it was the worst. Naturally, only one person lived there. Therefore, Qingming didn't have to worry about alarming others. Standing outside and observing carefully for a while, Qingming chose a similar wooden house again and approached it carefully. After observing through the crack of the door for a while and confirming that there was only one person in the house, Qingming used a kunai to pry open the door and sneaked in. After a while, Qingming came out. Things went very smoothly. The other party was still asleep when he was cut in the throat. After that, Qingming followed the same method. He walked in and out of the wooden houses like the god of death, harvesting the lives in them. The whole process was silent. If it could continue like this, it would save a lot of trouble. Unfortunately, things often don't go according to people's wishes. Just when he killed the 10th person, a terrified scream resounded throughout the camp. Qingming paused for a moment, and then killed his men more quickly. Then, he dodged and came out of the house, looking in the direction of the sound. I saw a bandit rushing out of the house, covering his neck, and shouting as he ran, "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" However, before he shouted a few words, a figure chased out of the house. Who else could it be but Ryosuke? He was seen sprinting behind the bandit, and then stabbed a kunai into his back. The bandit's voice stopped abruptly. Despite this, the whole camp was still restless. Fatally, Qingming could hear slight noises coming from the wooden houses. After a little thought, Qingming came to a wooden house, and then kicked it out, and the wooden door shattered. While the two people in the house hadn't figured out the situation, he rushed in quickly and killed them in an instant. Then, he rushed out of the wooden house and came to another wooden house, and did the same thing, killing the bandits inside. Not only him, but Ryosuke also stopped hiding, just to kill as many enemies as possible in the shortest time. In this way, when the chaos subsided, there were only 12 bandits left in the camp. The bandit leader looked at the only 11 people gathered around him, and his face was quite ugly. Tap, 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 a sound of footsteps came. Qingming and Ryosuke walked out of the house on the left and right. Looking at the 4 protectors on their heads, a bandit shouted in horror, "It's a ninja. We are being targeted by the ninja. It's over, we are finished." Obviously, the ninja world war not only involved the major ninja villages, but also thousands of ordinary people. Perhaps in peacetime, these bandits still couldn't recognize the identities of Qingming and Ryosuke as ninjas, but after the baptism of the Ninja World War, they immediately recognized them. Not only that, they also have a certain understanding of the horror of ninjas. Snap, a crisp slapping sound came. "Paw, nonsense." The bandit leader slapped the frightened bandit in the face, spitted, glanced at Qingming and Ryosuke, and said viciously, "What are you afraid of? They are just 2 little brats. Everyone, come together, I don't believe I can't kill them." After saying that, he was about to lead the charge. However, at this moment, Qingming flipped his hands, and 6 shurikens appeared between his fingers. The next moment, the shurikens flew out. The bandit leader still wanted to dodge, but the level 2 ninja tool throwing is not a joke. If it were a ninja, it might be possible to avoid the vital points or block, but how could a mere bandit leader have such ability? So it was seen that the bandit leader had just taken half a step and fell straight down. "Ah, the boss is dead, everyone, run!" I don't know who shouted, and the 11 bandits immediately scattered like birds and beasts, running in all directions. Qingming and Liangji looked at each other, and followed the bandits who were running around, leaving only the bandits running down the mountain road. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Return. On the other side, Shizuko Mizutani stood guard by the mountain path, her mind racing. She was worried about the safety of Qingming and Ryosuke, and then she was thinking about what she should do if the enemy came. Time passed slowly as she waited anxiously. After an unknown amount of time, a burst of hurried footsteps suddenly came from a distance. Shizuko Mizutani woke up instantly, her spirit stretched to the limit at this moment. "Who is it, Qingming?" "No, his footsteps are not so heavy, Ryosuke." "No, the steps are too big, these are the footsteps of an adult, it's the enemy." In an instant, Shizuko Mizutani got the answer. At this moment, all the thoughts in her mind disappeared. Shizuko Mizutani approached without hesitation. On the mountain path, 2 bandits were running one after the other. While running, they did not forget to look back from time to time. There was fear on their faces, as if they were worried that something would catch up with them. Whoosh! Suddenly, a sound of breaking through the air came from the side. The bandit in front hadn't seen the object clearly when his calf was pierced by a kunai. "Ah!" A scream came out of his mouth, and then he stumbled and fell heavily to the ground, rolling several times, looking very embarrassed. Seeing this, the bandit behind him stopped immediately and looked in the direction where the kunai came from with great anxiety, and then saw a little girl half a person's height walking out of the forest. At a glance, his eyes were attracted by the thing on the girl's forehead. Not long ago, 2 demons wearing the same thing slaughtered dozens of them, and now they met another one. This made him extremely scared. However, when he saw the girl's pretty face, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope in his heart. Without any hesitation, he fell to his knees and cried, "Please forgive me. I joined them out of necessity and have never done anything bad. I have 2 children at home, about your age. If I die, they will not survive. They are so small and so pitiful. Please, for the sake of the children, let me go. I will never do bad things again." As he spoke, he kowtowed several times, with such force that his forehead bled. The miserable appearance made Shizuko Mizutani feel a little bit of pity, and she thought to herself, Is what the other party said true? If so, I will kill him, child. Just as Shizuko Mizutani was struggling with her mind and could not make up her mind for a while, and the bandit showed a look of relief on his face, a kunai suddenly shot from a distance and accurately nailed into his throat. Qingming flashed in front of the bandit, then suddenly pulled out the kunai, letting the blood splatter. Then, he walked to another frightened bandit and calmly stabbed his chest with a kunai, ending his life. Qingming, Shizuko Mizutani looked at Qingming and stabbed. Don't think too much when doing a mission. Before she could continue, Qingming waved his hand to interrupt her and said, don't forget the mission requirements. After that, he walked down the mountain on his own. Shizuko Mizutani stood there, stunned for a long time, and then muttered, kill all the bandits. That's right, the requirement of their mission this time is to kill all the bandits on Ziohai Mountain. Letting any of them go, strictly speaking, will be considered a mission failure. It's not that Qingming is so obsessed with a mission, he is not Kakashi. The reason he did this is just to let Shizuko Mizutani understand that the mission is the mission. Thinking too much when performing a mission can easily lead to bad things. In the foreseeable future, for a long time, their Class 17 will be a whole and will perform missions together. Qingming doesn't want to be dragged down by stupid teammates one day. So, be ruthless when it's time to be ruthless. Of course, this is also a stopgap measure. It is impossible for him to do whatever the village asks him to do. Would that make him a task tool like the root ninja? When his strength improves, he can naturally make a choice. At this stage, he should just be a good tool, down the mountain. The three of them gathered together again. Furukawa, who had disappeared for several hours, also reappeared. His eyes swept over the three of them one by one, and finally he only said not bad, and then led the three of them to the direction of the village. Perhaps considering the unsafe outside, Furukawa did not plan to camp outside, and prepared to take them back overnight. Qingming agreed with this. If possible, he wanted to stay in the village all the time. Unfortunately, this is impossible. In fact, from now on, he will have to leave the village from time to time to perform tasks. Now I just hope Furukawa will take it easy and not take too many sea-level tasks. In a flash, several hours passed. The next morning, Qingming and the others returned to Konoha village. The journey was smooth and unremarkable, and it felt unreal to Qingming. Sure enough, I'm not the protagonist, and the world doesn't revolve around me. Thinking of Naruto's random missions, he would eventually reach S rank, and Qingming couldn't help but feel a toothache. Fortunately, I don't have the protagonist's halo, so I won't be so unlucky. Qingming secretly rejoiced in his heart. Okay, let's go back and rest. Walking into the village, Guchwin stopped and said, there will be no missions in the next 3 days, so you can relax appropriately. Goodbye, teacher. X3 Qingming and the other two replied weakly. Okay, let's go. Guchwin waved his hand, motioning them to leave. Qingming and his two companions said goodbye, and then hurried to the Uchiha clan. After returning home, Qingming sat on the chair for a while, and then took off his equipment. Although this mission only took 1 day, it felt like a long time. And he also changed from an ordinary person who had never killed a chicken to an executioner with more than 20 lives. Although he convinced himself that these people deserved to die, and even had the leisure to pay attention to the mental state of his teammates, he still felt a little uncomfortable when he thought about it now. The scenes before those people died kept reappearing in front of him, making him lose the energy to practice. However, whether he could be motivated or not, he could not fall behind in practice. Qingming forced himself to stabilize his mind, and began to perform the art of reflecting the heart in a methodical manner, just like a beginner. There were no accidents in this mission, and it didn't take much chakra to kill those bandits, so he still had plenty of chakra in his body. This naturally couldn't be wasted. So Qingming brushed up the proficiency of the art of reflecting the heart. Looking at the proficiency increasing little by little on the panel, Qingming's heart calmed down unconsciously. Soon, the chakra was exhausted. And Qingming began to refine chakra again. When the chakra was full, he practiced the art of reflecting the heart again. Just like that, after 2 rounds of practice, it was already noon. Qingming could no longer hold on. He washed up casually, and fell asleep. In the bedroom, Qingming didn't know what he dreamed about. His brows frowned and relaxed from time to time. Chapter 23, Ordinary. 3 days later. In the northwest of Konoha. In a forest, Qingming and others came here. Is this the place? Ryosuke looked around and asked. Yes, Furukawa nodded and said, "Next, you will collect herbs here according to the mission requirements. Remember, don't pick the wrong ones." That's right, they started to carry out the mission again today. Just as Qingming thought, Furukawa did not continue to accept C-level missions, but found a D-level mission to collect herbs. Needless to say, this mission must be issued by the Nara clan. After all, this forest is contracted by them. Not only are there various herbs that are difficult to cultivate artificially, but also a large herd of deer are raised. The horns of these deer are all precious medicinal materials. All these add up, the value is self-evident. Therefore, even if they are ninjas from the same village, they cannot enter at will without their approval. Only they accepted the mission, otherwise they would be stopped before they get close. Got it? Hearing Furukawa's instructions, Ryosuke waved his hands impatiently and muttered, "Really? Such a simple task can be done by ordinary people, but we have to do it." "Ryosuke, stop talking." Hearing his words, Mizutani Shizuko first comforted him, and then explained seriously, "Although this forest is relatively safe, there are still wild beasts that stray into it occasionally. It will be very dangerous for ordinary people to encounter it, so we, the Jinan, have to do it." Seeing Mizutani Shizuko's serious explanation, Ryosuke hurriedly said, Okay, Shizuko, stop talking, I got it." Seeing the two of them like this, Qingming secretly felt relieved. Obviously, 3 days is enough for them to adjust their mentality. However, the mission 3 days ago did not have an impact on them. Although they are now acting the same as before. But after seeing the blood, the childishness on their faces was obviously much less. And this is probably the purpose of Furukawa and even the village. Shaking his head, he stopped thinking about it. Qingming thought about it, gathered some chakra under his feet, and then followed the footsteps of his two companions to the depths of the dense forest. After more than 3 days and nearly 4 days of practice, his chakra control has been upgraded from LV2, 350 out of 500, to LV3, 3/1000, and his control over chakra has been further strengthened. Now, when he performs the same ninjutsu, he can save 15% of chakra while ensuring that the power remains unchanged. This is already the limit that ordinary people can achieve. Even if he has the proficiency panel bonus, he can ensure continuous progress, but it is unlikely to have a new breakthrough in a short period of time. There is no other reason. After being promoted to LV3, the efficiency of brushing proficiency has been greatly reduced. Before, he could brush about 40 to 50 points of proficiency a day, but now it is only 5 points at most. Compared with the effort, this gain is not worth mentioning. It is also that practicing chakra control does not consume too much chakra, and it does not take up his extra time, otherwise he would have stopped long ago. Before obtaining a more effective way to exercise, he no longer intends to waste too much time and energy on it. In the future, he would probably only practice in his spare time. Just like now, when he was collecting herbs, he could practice when he had nothing to do. "Qingming, hurry up." Just as Qingming was daydreaming, Ryosuke's voice came from the front. Hearing this, Qingming replied, "I'm coming." As he spoke, he had already approached. Time passed slowly, and Qingming and the other two were just like when they graduated, performing D-level tasks that had no technical content. In the blink of an eye, a week passed. That night, at home, Qingming opened his eyes, let the special chakra in his brain stimulated by the reflection of the heart technique dissipate, and slowly opened the panel. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 6 spirit, 7 chakra, 14, 15,462,011, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 81/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV2, 240 out of 500, LV2, 360 out of 500, clone technique, LV2, 140 out of 500, LV2, 270 out of 500, transformation technique, LV2, 130 out of 500, LV2, 260/500, substitution technique, LV2, 110/500, LV2, 250 out of 500, fire style, great fireball technique, LV1, 16/200, LV1, 30/200, heart reflection technique, LV2, 110/500, basic taijutsu, LV2, 150/500, LV2, 280/500, ninja tool throwing, LV2, 260/500, LV2, 380/500, Chakra Control, LV3, 25/1000. Beyond the basic attributes, Qingming locked onto the Sharingan's awakening progress at a glance. Sure enough, it hasn't increased. Looking at the Sharingan awakening progress still at 81 out of 100, on the panel, Qingming murmured. Just now he felt that the stamina of the reflection of the heart technique was insufficient, and now it was indeed the case. According to the rules summarized before, the reflection of the heart technique with a level increase to LV2, 110/500, should allow his Sharingan awakening degree to reach 82/100. But the reality is that its progress is still at 81/100. Sure enough, did the thing I was worried about happen? Qingming knew long ago that it was not so easy to awaken the Sharingan, and the effect of the heart reflecting technique would inevitably become worse and worse as the awakening progressed. Sure enough, when the awakening degree of the Sharingan reached 81/100, the proficiency of 10 points of the heart reflecting technique was no longer enough to advance it by 1 point. If it were other Uchiha clan members, they would basically be stuck here. After that, they would either wait for an opportunity and open their eyes in the traditional way like the Uchiha clan members who had awakened the Sharingan in the past, or work hard to improve the proficiency of the heart reflecting technique and grind slowly. If the former succeeds, it will inevitably weaken the effect of the heart reflecting technique, and the latter basically has no hope. Because this is just the beginning. Now the proficiency of 10 points of the heart reflecting technique cannot bring the awakening degree of the Sharingan to point, and later it may not be able to bring it to 20 or 30 points. This is a road with no end in sight. Of course, Qingming is different. With a proficiency panel, he can easily improve the proficiency of the reflection of the heart technique. No matter how long the road is, he can see the end. Repressing the urge to continue practicing the reflection of the heart technique, Qingming looked at the other parts of the panel. Not to mention the three-body technique, basic physical technique, and ninja tool throwing. The improvement speed has not changed much. In 10 days, almost more than 100 points of proficiency have been increased. However, the chakra limit is more than 10 points less than expected. Originally, the proficiency of the chakra refining technique increased by 120 points, and the chakra limit should have increased by 480 points. 1546 plus 480 equals 2026. But now, his chakra limit is only 2011 points. 15 points less than the theoretical value. The reason for this is very simple. His barrel is about to reach its limit. The chakra refining technique has accelerated the process of tapping his potential, but it cannot itself improve his qualification limit. Right now, the chakra limit that he has raised is only a dozen points lower than the theoretical value. After a while, it will probably be dozens of points. When his potential is fully tapped, the effect of the chakra refining technique will probably only be the restoration of chakra. I have to awaken the Sharingan as soon as possible. Only by awakening the Sharingan can I greatly improve my qualifications. With a murmur, Qingming closed the panel and began a new round of training. Chapter 24 Encounter. Qingming, this way, in Konoha village, on a street, Ryosuke waved at Qingming from a distance, and Mizutani Shizuko was standing beside him. Qingming heard that and walked over slowly. When Qingming approached, Ryosuke said dissatisfiedly, "Qingming, you are too slow. We agreed to go shopping together, why can't you come earlier?" Qingming knew that Ryosuke was not really dissatisfied, but just complained habitually, so he didn't explain anything, just asked, "Where are we going first?" Originally, according to Qingming's personality, it would be impossible to waste time shopping. There is nothing to go shopping in Konoha. But considering that he was too tense during this period, after hesitating for a while, he still agreed to the invitation of Ryosuke and Mizutani Shizuko to relax. At this time, half a month had passed since the effect of the reflection heart technique decreased. In this half-month, Furiko took them to perform another sea-level mission. However, it was not to suppress bandits, but to protect a caravan. During the period, although they encountered some troubles, they were all within the scope of the mission and did not encounter any danger. This made Qingming sigh again. It's good not to have the halo of the protagonist. "Let's go over there, there's a new meatball shop over there, it's delicious," Ryosuke pointed and said so. Hearing this, Qingming looked in the direction of the other party's finger, and there was indeed a new shop there, with a lot of people queuing in front of the door. The taste should be good. Just thinking about this, Qingming suddenly heard a few familiar names. Kakashi, hurry up, we have to make up for Lin's missed birthday today. Obito, don't do it, no, we must make it up. I know there's a new meatball shop in front, it's delicious, I'll treat you later. Kakashi, don't compete with me. Kakashi, Obito, Lin. Qingming silently thought in his heart and looked in the direction where the voice came from. At the other end of the street, 3 small figures were walking together, one in front and 2 behind. The person in front had his back to him, and the back of his clothes had the same Uchiha clan emblem as him. If nothing unexpected happened, it should be Uchiha Obito. The other party was talking excitedly at this moment, and seemed not to care about the gazes of the people around him. The 2 people behind him, a man and a woman, were facing him, so he could easily see their faces. Oh, no, there was one person he couldn't see clearly. He was about 11 or 12 years old, with silver hair, a short sword on his back, wearing a mask, and a cold expression. It was Kakashi Hatake, who had not yet walked out of the shadow of his father's death. With a mask blocking the view, Qingming couldn't see his full appearance even when they were face to face. Just as Qingming was observing the other party also looked over. What a keen perception! Qingming was still sighing, but at the moment when the 2 sides looked at each other, a chill surged into his heart. This was a strange feeling, as if being stared at by some ferocious beast, making people tremble in their hearts. Qingming quickly looked away. Qingming, what's wrong? Seeing Qingming suddenly stop and look a little ugly, Mizutani Shizuko asked with concern. Huh? Qingming exhaled a breath of foul air and slowly said, nothing. After that, he moved his feet and continued to walk forward. His eyes inevitably met Kakashi again. However, this time, he did not have the fear just now. That's right, when they looked at each other just now, he was afraid. It is true that he had killed people, but he only killed some weak bandits and robbers, and Kakashi was different. The other party had actually been on the battlefield and had fought in the mountains of corpses and seas of blood. The 2 sides were not on the same level at all. Therefore, it is not a big deal to have fear, as long as you can overcome it. On the other side, Uchiha Obito saw Kakashi looking behind him and asked in confusion, what's wrong? While speaking, he also looked back. At a glance, he recognized Qingming's identity. There was no way, that ping-pong racket was too conspicuous. A younger generation of the clan, thinking this in his heart, Obito retracted his gaze and asked Kakashi, what's wrong with him? Judging from Qingming's dress and age, he is most likely a graduate this year. Uchiha Obito couldn't figure out why such a person was worthy of Kakashi's attention. Hearing Obito's question, Kakashi just shook his head and didn't say much. Soon, both parties came to the meatball shop. Kakashi, Obito and Lin were in the front, and Qingming and his 2 companions were in the back. In the team, Obito and Ryosuke kept talking, Lin and Mizutani Shizuko echoed each other, and Kakashi and Qingming didn't say a word. A few minutes later, Kakashi and others bought meatballs and left together. Qingming stood on the team, watching the backs of the 3 people leaving, and muttered to himself, they should be back to take the Chunin exam. Yes, after a period of thinking, he had roughly guessed why Kakashi and others appeared in the village. Konoha holds 2 Chunin exams every year, one in early January and one in early July. It is the end of November now, and the time for the new Chunin exam is coming soon. Considering their age, it is not difficult to guess the purpose of their return at this time. A month is long and short. If it is a peacetime, it is nothing. A month is enough to rush back, but in wartime, this time is a bit short. Although most Jonin are cannon fodder on the battlefield, they are definitely not the ones recommended by the letting Jonin to participate in the Chunin exam, and this kind of Jonin usually has certain tasks on the battlefield. To gather these people together, it is naturally not possible to just give an order like the cannon fodder Jonin. At least someone has to be arranged to take over their work. In addition, for the safety of these people, someone has to be specially sent to escort them. To a certain extent, these Jonin are the future of the village. If something happens on the way, the village may be cut off. Therefore, for safety reasons, they will definitely not return at the same time. In this way, it is not surprising to see them a month in advance. If he is right, the other 3 should be the first batch of Jonin to return to the village, and more will probably come back in the next month. As for whether the guess is accurate, we only need to look at the number of young Jonin in the village in the next month. However, Qingming has a hunch that after the Chunin exam, they, the newbies, may be sent to the battlefield. In other words, he doesn't have much time left. When he thought of this, Qingming wanted to go home and practice immediately. But after looking at the two teammates in front of him, he finally suppressed the restlessness in his heart. Since he decided to relax, he couldn't give up halfway. As the saying goes, sharpening the knife does not delay the chopping of wood. The short rest now is for more diligent practice later. Qingming, what flavor do you want? Just when Qingming was thinking, Ryosuke turned around and asked. Spicy, Qingming replied casually. Chapter 25 Level 3. Leisurely time always passes quickly. In the blink of an eye, a morning has passed. After lunch, the three of them went their separate ways. Qingming did not waste time and went straight back home, and then started practicing without stopping. In the past half-month, because he left the village to perform a sea-level mission, he was delayed for a while, so the chakra refining technique that should have been upgraded a few days ago has only reached level 2, 495 out of 500, until now. Fortunately, it will be soon. According to the current progress, it should be upgraded before dark. Thinking of this, Qingming closed his eyes and entered the state of practice. Time passed by minute. In the blink of an eye, several hours passed. The sun in the sky has set. Inside the house, Qingming suddenly opened his eyes, and a sense of enlightenment emerged in his heart. After a long time, he said to himself, "Is it finally level 3? After speaking, he closed his eyes again and began to refine chakra. An hour later, Qingming opened his eyes and called out, "Panel." The next moment, a familiar light blue screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 10 years old. Constitution, 6 spirit, 7 chakra, 1650, 2510, bloodline, Sharingan, unawakened, 81/100, 85/100, skills, chakra refining technique, LV3, 1/1000, LV3, 2/1000, clone technique, LV2, 270 out of 500, LV2, 430/500, transformation technique, LV2, 260/500, LV2, 420/500, substitution technique, LV2, 250/500, LV2, 410/500, fire style, great fireball technique, LV1, 30/200, LV1, 50/200, reflection of the heart technique, LV2, 110/500, LV2, 260/500, basic physical technique, LV2, 280/500, LV2, 450/500, throwing of ninja tools, LV3, 1/1000, chakra control, LV3, 78/1000. As he had just realized, the effect of the chakra refining technique that was promoted to LV3 was further enhanced. Among them, the chakra recovery speed has increased from 200 points per hour to 400 points now, and the chakra limit that can be increased during this period should have increased from 4 points to 8 points. The reason for uncertainty is that after his chakra limit reached 2,500 points a week ago, it did not move much. The 10 points after that were still increased by himself as time went by. Therefore, the LV3 chakra refining technique can increase the chakra limit by 8 points every hour, which is just his estimate. However, a feeling in the dark told Qingming that this number should be correct. But it is useless. His potential had been exhausted a week ago. Without improving his aptitude, he could only increase his chakra through hard work. This was not something that could be solved by upgrading the chakra refining technique. The two were not on the same channel at all. In other words, the current chakra refining technique only had one effect on him, which was to quickly restore his chakra. Of course, he could still continue to improve his proficiency. If he could raise his level to a higher level, and wait for his Sharingan to awaken one day, which would drive his aptitude to improve, he would also be able to realize his new potential more quickly. However, Qingming estimated that he would not be able to wait until that day. It was not that there was not enough time, but that he estimated that his Sharingan should be able to awaken before his level was raised. After all, it took 1,000 points of proficiency to upgrade the chakra refining technique from LV3 to LV4. At the speed of increasing proficiency by 1 point per hour, it would take 1,000 hours. But with his current physical condition and adequate nutrition, he could only last for 8 hours a day at most. 1,000 divided by 8 equals 125. That is, 4 months. How could his Sharingan awaken after such a long time? Don't look at the past half month. His Sharingan awakening progress has only increased by 4 points, from 81 out of 100 to 85 out of 100. It seems to be completely inconsistent with the 150 points of proficiency added by the reflection of the heart technique. But it is undeniable that he is one step closer to awakening. And with the promotion of the chakra refining technique to level 3, the maximum amount of chakra he can use every day has also increased. Before, it was about 2,400-2,500 points, and now it has become about 3,500 points. If 3,000 points of it are used to practice the reflection of the heart technique, combined with a 15% chakra reduction brought by level 3 chakra control, it is enough to increase the proficiency of the reflection of the heart technique by 17-18 points every day. In this way, the awakening progress of his Sharingan will inevitably accelerate. That's why Qingming said that he could awaken the Sharingan in 4 months. In fact, 4 months is far overestimated. There is no other reason. According to this plan, it will take less than 2 weeks for his reflection of heart technique to be upgraded to level 3, and the effect will be greatly increased. In this way, the awakening speed of his Sharingan will definitely exceed expectations. Forcibly suppressing the restlessness in his heart, Qingming moved his eyes away from the awakening degree of the Sharingan and looked at other skills. Although these skills are not his main focus, he has made good progress after practicing them, such as the 3-body technique. Its proficiency has reached level 2, 400/500, or above. If, as he expected, these level basic ninjutsu, level 3 is the maximum level, then the difference is not far. By then, he may be able to learn another ninjutsu. As for what to learn? Qingming probably has an idea. He does not need offensive ninjutsu for the time being, and the fire style, great fireball technique can be used first, and there will be Sharingan to assist in the future, so there is no shortage of offensive means. In terms of defense, the ninja world does not have any serious defensive ninjutsu, so they can only increase the means of escape and disguise. So, the instant body technique entered his field of vision. In the ninja world, the instant body technique can be roughly divided into 3 categories. The first is the ninjutsu type, such as Gaara's sand instant body, Zabuza's fog instant body, Hanzo's water instant body, and the most popular D-level ninjutsu in the ninja world, instant body technique, etc. These are all achieved through the effect of ninjutsu. The second is the physical technique type. This type of instant body technique is to strengthen the ninja's leg muscles to achieve the purpose of fast movement. Among them, Might Guy and the 4th generation Raikage are more representative. As for the third category, that is the instant body technique represented by Flying Thunder God, which is directly transferred through space to perform instant movement. Compared with the first 2, which are not worthy of the name, they just speed up the movement speed through various methods, and the latter is undoubtedly closer to the concept of instant body technique. However, Qingming's goal is not the Flying Thunder God technique. It's not that he doesn't want it, or he is worried that he can't learn it. With a proficiency panel, as long as there is no special need, he can force himself to get into any ninjutsu through hard work. Flying Thunder God technique belongs to this category. So, in theory, as long as he gets the training method of Flying Thunder God technique, he can learn it. But the problem is, he can't get it. If it is a ninjutsu from the clan, he can still think of a way, but Flying Thunder God technique is an S-level ninjutsu recorded in the Book of Seals. How can he, a mere Sharingan, have the chance to get it? After all, he is not Naruto, and no one paves the way for him. So, what he is going to learn is actually a D-level ninjutsu that is everywhere on the street, the instant body technique. But being everywhere on the street does not mean that its effect is not good, but it means that it is universal, just like the shadow clone technique, with a very high cost performance. It just so happens that he can use this technique to transition. When his strength is improved, there will be more choices to make. After pondering for a while, Qingming set his sights on basic physical skills and ninja tool throwing. The former's proficiency has reached level 2, 450 out of 500, and it will be upgraded in a short time. The latter has already been upgraded from level 2 to level 3. Unfortunately, after being promoted to level 3, 1/1000, its proficiency is stuck. Qingming had expected this. Without the cooperation of the Sharingan, the limit of ninja tool throwing is here. I still need the Sharingan, with a sigh, Qingming closed the panel and began to brush on the proficiency of reflection of the heart technique. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.